You weren't expecting me, were you? But in the words of our great DM, Matt, good evening, Internet, as you join us for a very special episode of Malt, Magic and More, where we're going to recap a little bit of Campaign 1, answer your burning questions. We've got some burning questions of our own, and hopefully by the time we're finished, we'll wrap a nice little bow around what was an emotional end to Campaign 1. So, without further ado, I think let's get into it. Roll them titles.
Look at that fresh face behind that title.
I forgot how much I like that intro.
That's so fun.
We all look so
many little
different
nuggets
already.
Different.
Yeah.
I was in a
like
different house when we
2
recorded
years
that.
ago.
Yeah, can you tell that was lockdown time?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Jesus.
We're all dishevelled and broken now.
Yep.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Absolutely. Hello. It's nice to have everybody here because obviously last week with the Feywild special, Samal was not here and we missed him dearly. So it's nice to have Samal back. It's nice for Samal to be at home
HD as well,
rather than I was going to say rather than here, there, and everywhere. So yeah, the DM is currently floating between campaigns, hence the teleportation circle behind me.
I kind of want you to tip the chair backwards and just disappear, see what you know.
I mean, I could do that if I disappear through the green screen, but I'm also probably going to smack my head on something, so let's not do that. Cool. So I think the plan is to do a bit of a second half of the campaign recap, if you like, because Dave and I already did the first half way back when. I think it was almost October last year we did that. Maybe a little bit before. Up to around episode 67-ish. So we're going to go from there, just talk about sort of the highlights and the high level, what was happening. But yeah, and then I think it's a case of we'll all just ask questions to whoever we want. There's obviously some questions we've had from Discord and anybody that's in the chat. If you have any burning questions during the show, I think let's do that. But yeah, unless there's any questions immediately, I'm happy to sort of dive into what happened way back when in the middle of our campaign.
The only thing I'm questioning is what to do with myself until we start campaign 2. I'm a bit,
get your character to.
I was gonna say, sort your character out.
Yeah.
What I've got to do is build an emotional attachment to my new character because I haven't got one yet. I need to get emotionally invested.
Do that now, so that when we die in episode 2.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, the only other thing I need to call out is obviously, well, that's it. So next week, part 2 and the finale of Witches and Wildlights. So don't miss that because the first episode was insane and brilliant.
There would not have been a part 2 if Bufford hadn't come and saved us, is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
bit of fan service.
We very, very, very nearly were out shortly after the break.
Oh, just on that note, actually, the podcast, obviously the YouTube video's gone out. The podcast, I need to record a few extra podcast bits anyway, so I will release both podcast episodes when we've finished the whole mini-series, and they'll both go out on the podcast platform, but you can catch the YouTube episode if you want to go and catch it. So yes, go and enjoy it. It's hysterical. I, as a DM, lose my shit multiple times. Which is what it's all about.
Cool. Preamble for what we might be like in January.
Here's a question then. It's a very broad question to Matt. Did we, in the overall grand scheme of things, because obviously many times this wasn't true, in the grand scheme of things, did we do what you expected?
No.
I wanted us to.
Good.
just never, ever did you do what I expected.
I was going to say, I know that on many occasions, mainly Samal gave you a curveball, and it was mainly.
So I think in terms of the all-up, what was the end game of Campaign 1, which was defeat Asmodeus, return Nihilin, yes, you did what I kind of expected. You didn't do it in the order I was expecting. Hence, that final battle was like 7 times harder than it should have been. So you were meant to return Nihilin first, weaken Asmodeus, but you all just went, nah, fuck it, we're gone.
Yeah.
So we did, and that was a lot of
We
fun.
had a Kirik who had a plan, so it was fine. Say fine.
And then I think there was the
very
moment
close.
right at the end, which we'll get to anyway, but the like right at the end of that fight where the Raven Queen gives you a wish and Anders dying, and I'm sat there thinking, shit, you guys need to return Nihilin, but Anders dying, so what's he gonna do? And then somehow just like, yeah, no, fuck it, revivify. I've got a diamond that I've been holding on to. I've been
literally
shoved up
put-
my arse for the last, I don't know, 6 months.
It was absolutely fantastic. It was literally, Raven Queen, I'm going to put you on hold. I'll be back in a minute.
You see, you thought I was.
I don't even think he said that. He just went,
stealing loads of stuff, but the amount of diamonds I gave Kirik that actually saved my life in the end. So,
Yeah. I mean, that is very Ander.
Oh, there's a question. So, out of all the characters, which one died the most?
I was thinking about this.
Ander.
I think it was Ander.
I think it was Ander, yeah.
It's got to be Ander.
The guy who stayed the furthest away, I died the most times.
You did. I mean, one of them was your own
You died
fault.
once. Yeah, you died once because of the sword. That was the first one.
Yeah, that was on purpose. That yeah,
Then
that's true. Then Asmodeus.
Then you died at the end. That's 2.
I
Yeah,
swear you died
I
another
think you
time.
died another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you died.
Yeah.
I think Dargon died twice. Kirik died once.
Bothrid died
Bothrid
once, and
died
that was
once.
epic.
yeah, because Darkman died in
we're gonna come to
Ironforge,
that
and
exact
you two
point.
went to death.
So we are going to touch on the Feeble Mind later because it's one of my favourite moments of the whole campaign.
And it's not one of Sabat.
One of. No.
I've been watching like various D&D streams, and I've been playing D&D for about 4 years now, and I have never seen. Well, I've seen Feeble Mind work like once, and then in this campaign it works twice. It's just
Yeah.
like,
On the same
Great.
person.
On the same
on the
person,
same
yeah.
character.
At
Yeah.
just as crucial times.
Oh, good stuff. Right, before we lose ourselves in all of our favourite moments, because I know there's a lot of them. So from the mid-campaign recap, we actually the immediate episode afterwards, there was a big reveal, because the episode was Silver Mysteries, so it was the big Gindred reveal, which I don't
No
think
way,
anybody
yeah.
saw coming.
No,
No.
although
Somehow,
The irony
Kirik
of
did an
Kirik-
absolute blinder in that episode.
yeah, we left on a cliffhanger because you did what was it? Whatever it was.
It was the like
She's like,
the,
"Okay,
Turn
the
around and
ability
used
of
his
the,
Okay, a dragon
armor
spell.
ability.
ability of the
Yeah.
armor.
And then it was like, there's one 6 feet away, and we were like, shit, we're going to get rampated, and we were all freaking out. And it was Ginders the whole time.
Yeah.
We thought we was all about to die.
So yeah, we had that, and that was obviously during the Shiverspire arc, if you like, where Ander discovered more about his heritage, discovered his name, like true surname.
Let's make that up on the spot as well.
Yeah, you did brilliantly.
Yeah, that was good fun. There was a few times I put you all on the spot. I think what was the other moments? It was with you, Dave, because we'd only ever spoken about when, with regards to your family, that you had a wife and child.
Yeah.
Not once did you specify the gender, and then I think I hit you with a daughter. And
It
just
was
to see
always
how you
daughter
responded.
from the get-go anyway, actually. It just so happened to be that, yeah, I did actually think the same. So
That's a
it
good
just,
thing I didn't fuck that up.
I would have rolled with it, but no, it was, yeah. I know that's very stereotypical, that D&D type backstory. I know there's many, but obviously I picked that one, first time of character, but it worked.
I mean, it's usually
superbly
parents, mate,
well.
to be fair.
Well, yeah.
Well,
So having a wife and
little did I
child
know,
is slightly different.
me chucking in a trope that I didn't know who my dad is, and that's one of my bonds is finding out who my true family is, turns out to be a pivotal moment of the whole campaign.
100%.
Yeah,
Just
I think that's
randomly picked it as a bond when you create your character. Turned out to be my whole character arc journey.
I think that's something that is worth pointing out, because I don't think people that like watchers or have ever watched an episode of us know is that the three of you, this is like the first time that you've played a campaign. Matt, if I'm not mistaken, it's the first time you DM'd the campaign. So like
this is the first time I DM'd.
I mean, mental.
Apart from again, that little bit of, I suppose, backstory to our actual game, not necessarily the campaign, was what was it? Was it about 18 months, or was it a year? 18 months of us.
Yeah, I think
playing every other Thursday. On Teams, just us and screen sharing some Roll20 sort of maps, and it was
it wasn't even Roll20, it was Teams and whiteboard.
Yeah, and it was just very fight basis, because we were sticking to, we were literally just sticking to, like, not really wanting to RP. We were like, we go into a shop, can I buy this, please? So to then have brought that out afterwards was so scary, but very fun.
Do you know what I think helped
to,
there
like,
for us?
Oscar-worthy performances at the end when Dargon's reunited with his family.
It was good. But what I think helped was
to that.
Yeah.
It's a big jump.
But I think that's where the homebrew helped, because when we were stuck in the Lost Mines of Fandelver, because that's what we did, stereotypical start to D&D, just went and bought the starter kit, played that, and pre-created characters for most of you. I think the both of you actually stuck with those pre-created characters and then just twisted them to be your own characters by the time we got to live streaming.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it certainly freed me up, taking us out of that, this is a preset module, and this is what's going to happen, to nobody knows what the fuck's going to happen now, because I'm making half of it up on the spot for those first few weeks at least, and then building out whatever the hell we wanted to do. So yeah, it's pretty insane. I think the first time I played D&D prior to this was when Samau and I played a one-shot at my mum and dad's house one Christmas. Samau DMing me as a solo player. Weird.
Yeah, that was an experience.
So... yeah, it was. There's some bardic abilities that are very useful.
Going back to, say, where we were starting, what is it? Episode 67, we were in Shiverspire.
Episode 62, actually, I was wrong on that. So,
okay, so...
we did the...
I actually have a question about that particular arc that may well get us into it later on. It's for Samau. Where did Kirik go?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah!
Oh, yeah.
Because we never found out.
Yeah, and that was sort of like tied to me like going away for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
I went on holiday or something.
It was.
Yeah.
But I think the general idea was that like Kirik would have gone to. I think Matt and I talked about it slightly, about like him going to the future, to a different place, using the kind of arts of dunamancy, and just studying stuff about, I think specifically Zapinia at the time.
Yeah,
that was what our goal was at the time. That remained our goal for a long time, and then we went on to do something completely different. And so like Kirik's backstory, Kirik's background was sage, which is an interesting one for a cleric. So the idea being that he's quite connected to books and knowledge, very specifically around like obviously undead and death and line and veil and all of that. So the idea was that he would go in there, and then Matt gave me a couple of tidbits of lore when I came back to be like, this is what Kirik would have like learned in the, I think it was 10 years. Yeah, 10 years that he spent away, which lasted like 2 days for you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, hence Kirik
Yeah.
then came back with like the silver streak in his
I was gonna say,
hair
came back with
and
the silver streak,
all
but
these subtle changes.
yeah, subtle changes,
The
but
older.
also Kay still came back a like he'd seen us yesterday, which was great, and it was very cool that was where you went.
Hmm.
Yeah, I certainly enjoyed
Yeah,
that.
it was.
He became a DILF in just a couple of days without having to get anyone pregnant. That is an achievement. Well done, Stig.
Kirik.
Fantastic. So yeah, obviously there was then that whole Bloodlines arc, if you like, the Shiverspire arc, which not only did we uncover Anders' family, but it was also that first proper interaction with the Primordials.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you went somewhere you were not meant to be.
Yeah,
You were not meant to be in that
we were
area,
getting
that part of the
road signs
game.
the
It was much
whole
later
way.
on in the game. So there was all sorts of things happened there. So you met the first source. And then I think from there it was back to the Maltmaster's Keep. And that's where the seeds of we don't trust you anymore began to properly set in. Like, you've sent us all these different places. We're not sure we trust anymore. You're not giving us the full story.
Yeah, wasn't
Yeah.
that seed was sown at Zapanir, coming back from Zapanir.
Yeah, it was sown earlier,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
going to the source, like, cemented it in. Like, we
Yeah.
simply do not trust you anymore. We are the Wardens now, so Q, we're off. And then he went south to Deluin, met Erendriel for the first time, who is a dick, was a dick.
And we didn't realise how much of one.
That I think that
He's a
was
demon. Devil, yeah.
that was the twist that like absolutely blew me away.
Well,
Because
that could
Absolutely
link
in-
floored all of us. Yeah.
It links into
Yeah.
Stick's question actually around what's an RP moment you would have approached differently and why. I think I've got loads of answers to that question. One of them is that guy, because if we'd have talked to him properly, we might have. If we'd have been on the ball, we probably would have twigged that, wouldn't we? And I probably wouldn't have gone through the whole distrust cycle with the Malt Masters, because that turned out to be a bad idea, because they ended up obviously being good guys and helping us out and stuff.
Yeah,
So-
but how the hell would we have made it out of that fight with Bell if we'd have realised he was a problem? We just thought we were going to just cut the head off an old dude.
True. To be fair,
That would have
we'd
gone
probably took on more than we
very
should have.
badly.
I suppose if you think about it, it did work out for the best, because we did go down under Delhi when didn't get what we needed, and then lied to him afterwards.
All the hints
about
were
it.
there. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, when
that's-
you went underneath
That's the thing that
Deluin,
annoyed me. Yeah, that's the thing that annoyed
fiends,
me. Is that
hellscapes, everything was there.
Yeah.
just when you said it, and I just go like, all these pieces that like didn't fit just suddenly do. And I remember this so clearly at the time when you said, like, when I think the first time we went to the Malt Master's Keep on like episode 30 or something, and Kirik very specifically like looked for the temples of the Raven Queen, and he said, yeah, they're all like around. There's one that's just destroyed in Deluin, that it's just not there anymore. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then when you made the reveal, I was like, of course that's why. This is like, yeah, I think that was the thing. That was the reveal. I think it's one of my favorite like episodes of the campaign, because it's that moment where like you have so many questions and you have so many things that don't fit, and you're like, this is a bit weird. I hope this gets like, why is this happening? And like, Deluin was fine, like the Nylin was all burning, and like Deluin was like, yeah, we're fine here. We're, like, despite being the city that's like the closest to the Black City, but not like we didn't even think about that. We were just like, yeah.
So,
This is a conversation with the NPC at the time where it's just, Erendriel's dead. It's been dead for ages. And everybody just went,
Yeah.
if I recall as well,
yeah,
when we
so
also
good.
then walked through Deluin second time, and Kirik was going to look for the Raven Queen, he also saw other temples were also destroyed, if I recall. Is that right?
They weren't destroyed. The
Was there one
temple
other
to
at least or something?
Corellin had been totally masked over.
So again, another thing, we only asked about the Raven Queen temple and not what had happened to all other temples. They've all been boarded up. Oh no.
So yeah, no, Deluan was fun, generally, just to create that place of... There's a dick in there anyway, you really don't fucking like him. Could potentially be a really strong ally, but actually he's just a lieutenant of Asmodeus at the end. He was just one of the Lords of the Hells, just hidden there.
Yep.
But obviously that set up the nice contrast between Deluan and Aphirduin as well, River's End, which was the next part on the journey. That one, I think it's what I called it, the anime battle, the old game, like Sega Mega Drive type game where the landscape moves but the characters didn't, because I just had to keep reusing the same portion of the bridge map and moving it along.
It's like
You were doing the bridge over...
Streets
Yeah,
of
that
Rage.
was quite cool.
Yeah, the bridge over Esamir, and it was the first time we did waves of enemies as well.
Yeah.
And this is quite fresh in my mind because I've just been re-listening to this in the podcast because I'm, again, that narcissistic and like to keep going back over these episodes. So yeah, it was the first time you need to get to River's End. They're under siege. We need to go help out, but actually we're just burning through shit here. And yeah, got to, I think it was through some ghouls, and then some more powerful ghouls, and then some devils, and then a big devil lord at the end. Excuse me. So that was
seem
interesting to
recall
see
being
how you
quite
coped.
tapped, at the end
Yeah.
of that, yeah.
Well, it was fun then because you obviously went into River's End, and it was the Shadow Court, and Kirik just went all out Kirik and thought, no, vampires, they're all dying. No one's getting out of here today. So two of my major characters, and this may tie into one of the questions, I don't know, but two characters that I'd put as like major, potentially NPCs, which was Duke Orfeo and his wife,
Yeah.
got absolutely obliterated in one episode.
Wow.
Well, one of my questions was around the vampires, actually, because can you remember when we first met them, they offered us that deal where they wanted us to sort out the shadow, whatever was in Shadowfell Chasm. And then I offered myself to let them turn me into a vampire before you dimension doored me out of there, and we fucked off like in a hot air balloon or whatever it was, airship. So what would have happened if we'd have took him up on his deal and actually decided to do it to keep the peace? Although Kirik would have never let it happen, in a sliding doors moment, if we'd have took him up on his deal, what would have happened?
So the minute they'd have tasted your blood, they'd have known, and that would have totally changed the trajectory of where things might have gone for them and for you. Because if they can control the future king of Nyalin...
Oh yeah. No, that could have been catastrophic.
I'd say that was a rather clutch moment.
Yeah,
then.
it's like what if Aragorn became a Nazgul, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Because in my head,
Pretty much.
when I offered myself up, I thought, right, Dargon's a werewolf now. If I could be a fucking vampire, we're going to be like Kate Beckinsale and that dude from...
It's like some sort of Skyrim bullshit.
Yeah, I was like,
gone
a
full
vampire
on
werewolf duo, kicking ass and taking names. That's what I thought in my head. That's what was going to happen.
But would have been a pile of dust on the floor.
I have just thought, when I just talked about Sticks' question around an RP moment I would have done differently, my biggest regret, it went down to bad dice rolls in the end. But you know when I was possessed or cursed by the Baal's blade, and we was in the Tabaxi camp,
Blade.
Yeah.
the amount of times I tried to go on a murder spree in the middle of the night, but my dice rolls were so shit that I either couldn't sneak about or I couldn't stab them. Right? So I went into the Tabaxi tent to try and murder everybody, but he ended up spotting me because I didn't roll a stealth check very well, so I just had to leg it. The amount of times I tried to be evil and do something and I just fucked up the rolls, like me and Matt were doing rolls in the background and I fucked them up and then nothing happened. That could have been such a cool arc if I'd have carried it along. So I just thought, right, I need to get out of this. I'm going to commit suicide.
And that was
break the bad luck.
I think that was the first moment for you as a player where I thought, fuck, RP, we're up there now. You've set the bar. Because before that, there'd been little moments, and then, no, I'm going to turn this blade on myself and stab myself. And... just, how do I deal with that as a DM then? Okay.
Yeah. It completely threw me. It was a brilliant move, and I do love the fact that it did only it did what you meant it to do. I love also how, if I recall, Dargon just thought it was a sword after that. Kirik knew full well the danger of it, and I loved.
Stole it.
Well, Kirik nicked it for 3 episodes. I think he nicked it and put it in his bag.
I think it was more than that. Yeah,
like 3 months.
A few weeks in game sort of thing.
Because then didn't bring it out until that.
Yeah, until we talked to the Malt Masters, and still annoyed that I did that because now the sword's still out there.
Sword's still out there.
I mean, I'm really looking forward to finding the sword again in campaign 2, but.
I was going to say, I mean, it's one of those things that Matt's either going to tell us what happened to him, or he can't, because...
Well, you already know what happened to him.
Oh, do we?
So,
remind us then.
Didn't he get killed?
Very last episode, you found his body,
dead.
but not the sword.
Yeah,
so you found the body, but where the body had changed before, and this is an Easter egg that I will explain, the body had started to change into like this red-skinned humanoid more than a dragonborn. You found the body of the distiller as the stillman as the stillman was, so green dragonborn.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, there will be repercussions from that one. Is all I'm going to say. That there is a definite subplot point that I've already laid into the rest of our world as a result of that.
There is a.
So now I'm not going to trust anyone's character because they're secretly being controlled. If any of you have a sword with a ruby on it, mate, I'm killing you straight off. I'll tell you that.
Why did you do that?
Not that my character would know that, but you know. Anyhow.
I think I was watching a YouTube video the other day because the Moonblade, as in a Moonblade, is just an item in D&D, and I just totally corrupted the whole thing for the idea of the Blood Moonblade and what it does. And somebody else has come up with the exact same idea around like the use of blood sacrifices to fuel a blade and stuff, and called it the Blood Moonblade, which is just ridiculous.
That's fantastic.
So I should have patented that before we started and trademarked it, but oh well.
We could have been rolling in the Benjamins.
I suppose that brings me onto a question then. Out of all the items that you had and interacted with as players, what was your favourite?
Danny, you've got quite a lot to pick through from.
My necklace of fireballs.
Yeah, there we go.
Necklace of fireballs.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was brilliant.
There were so many moments after I'd spunked them all that I was like, a fucking fireball grenade would be amazing right now. And I was like, every time I leveled
Did you
up, I was
use
like,
them all before you lost everything?
I think you had one or two left.
I had 1 or 2 left when I lost everything with the deck of many things.
Deck of many things.
The amount of times I tried to find an area of effect spell that I could use as a bard, and I was like, nothing is the same. Nothing is the same as just fucking lobbing a grenade, Othrid taking it on the chin because he gets half damage in a rage, and just fucking shit up. That was my absolute favourite.
Dave?
Go, I mean, I would have to... I'm trying to think. I mean, the obvious one is the sword. But I think in a cool way, it was actually back when I had... Was it Weapon Bond?
Yeah.
That was really cool because of the ability to be able to, fling this glowing sword and actually recall it was so much fun. So it was actually a combination of a skill, or it was a skill, I suppose. the sword was really cool. And yeah, a sentient sword's great fun. I didn't know
whether the blink hand axe would hold a place in your heart as well. Up until the moment you lost it throwing at a vampire.
So, and to be honest, it hurt as much as losing the sword, would have been, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, it is a very close second, that blink hand axe, and maybe it should take first place, because I think there is one thing that sticks in my mind. I think it was just before we entered the cave and the tomb of Zapanir, Dargon launched the blink hand axe up into a flying mage and blinked to him, bringing this bad boy down to the ground, plummeting. Yep. And actually, that was very cool. So yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely some cool RP moments out of that blink hand axe. The funniest bit for me was you throwing it at a vampire and then somehow burning the vampire to bits, to the point where the hand axe just went...
Yeah, and we're like, we're going up out of the airship, and I'm like, Like I said, I really I kind of think of that post-credits thing of, after that episode or even after the campaign, everything's calmed down, and this kid just walks up to this glowing blue axe and just throws it, and suddenly, poof, disappears. You're like, here we go.
You just told everybody my character for campaign 2.
Axe kid. Axe boy.
Oh, good stuff. Go on then, Samar. What was your favourite item, homebrew or not?
Yeah, I think I have to say the shield. Although the gauntlets that Kirik had by the end were really, really good. I didn't get to use them a lot because I think by that time we were being hit by mostly spells, and the gauntlets worked mostly on melee attacks or stuff, or melee spells, and we were being hit by range stuff. So, but yeah, they had really fun abilities that played into Kirik's sort of battlefield control, abilities in general. But the shield, I mean, yeah, the shield saved us more than a couple of times, I think. I am not forgetting the Staff of Healing is just very painful. Still.
Yeah. Was it having to use all 15 at once or something?
There's another thing that I've never seen happen. I've never seen one of those items that have a roll disappear, and of course it just happened. I remember so well when I rolled it, and I was like, well, it's gone now. Yeah, it was a moment. That was a moment.
I'm glad that I think as fan memories as well.
Yeah, I think as a player, I was always very conscious of okay, I always have to have a 3rd level spell slot left and a 5th level spell slot left, because that's the resurrection spells. And likewise, I was always I always have to have 1 slot of Staff of Healing left. Yeah. There was a moment where we were so we were really bad, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna cast Mask Your Wounds. What's the worst that can happen? It's a 1 in 20 chance. And I rolled a natural 1, so that was that. And it's just gone. That was
the dice gods went, no thank you. I mean, Kirik was OP as fuck anyway, let's be fair. The guy was...
It's just the thing, a cleric, because clerics have so many good and fun spells to deal with, that there's always the thing of, oh, clerics are healers, which is not necessarily true. It can be, but it gets to a point. I think it gets to a point where Dargon by the end had 260 points or whatever it is.
Around there, I can probably look it up, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's it gets to a point where it's I don't really need to heal.
Yeah,
but it's always nice to have an item that gets those spells prepared for you. It's cool.
But also, it's a very good point. You have that many hit points. The proportion of healing you can give me declines and reduces
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
proportion. Not proportionate to how we grow. So yeah, before, level 5, a cleric is so crucial because you can put us back to full health. In this last one, even mass cure wounds could do maximum of a third. No, is it mass cure wounds? No, I'm thinking of heal. Can do a third or a quarter of my
heal is 70
the only other
70 hit points. So
the only
Speak
other
for
feature
yourself.
I know is is it the paladin's ability to spend 700 odd hit points and spread it across people?
No, that
was
was what I got with when I used
Mass
Draco,
heal,
and that's
I
mass heal.
Well, no, you got that with Solar Swift, but I nicked that for. Oh, it might be Mass Heal actually. Yeah.
No, it was mass heal. It was from Vraco, and it is 700 hit points. It is a cleric thing, and it is like 9th level. It is, and don't get me wrong, that is the only spell at that point that makes a difference. But if you had a bunch of barbarians and high HP thing, that doesn't go very far.
It's sorted me out.
7 Bothrids.
Yeah, then
I
it's
mean,
like,
like grave clerics do have the ability to, like, if someone is down, they just get back up with maximum of whatever it would be the roll. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, like everything else,
that is.
And I guess it's good to like what's a healing word going to do to Dargon at that point? It's like
it's like a peck on the cheek,
right?
So that does bring me nicely onto my next question, which is specifically for you, Samal, because you're the only one that didn't have a pre-generated character as such.
Mm-hmm.
What made you choose Grave Cleric over any of the other cleric types? Because I know we discussed around you being a cleric to add that element of healing to the group, but then you came out of Grave Cleric, and I just went, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually goes in line with like a question that I had for Dave and Danny, which was like, why your characters, and why did you choose halfway through the campaign? Because like we all multiclassed, but I was the only one out of the 4 characters. I think Bothrid also did it, which didn't change the subclass at one point. So I'm really interested to see, like, to understand why, like, you decided during the campaign that was something that you wanted to do, and if it was something like, obviously you did that story related, but if it was something that like I don't really like the way my character's working, or I want to take my character a different way, so that's something for you to think about whilst I answer my question. Why Grave Cleric? I don't really know, because we talked about when you approached me about joining. You said there's a barbarian NPC, there's a fighter, and there's a rogue. And I was like, cool. I feel like we need healing, which is not like, it's not, as a DM. I'm also like, I'm happy to run a group with no, like, I've done it before, and I'm not doing it right now, but like I'm happy. Like I don't think you need a healer in a party, basically. But I was like, cool, I like clerics, and I've never played I think at the time I'd never played a full caster. So I was like, cool, I will try it out. Because I've thought a lot about playing like a paladin or a cleric, and it's interesting because then like Kirik ended up being a cleric fighter, which is a neo paladin, and yeah, so
fighter that never actually used a melee attack ever.
Nope.
Action
and whenever
surge
he
like
tried,
a
he failed.
bastard,
So yeah, action surge was that sweet action surge is pretty good. Yeah. So then when I was looking at the domains, I was thinking about. I think I toyed with the idea. I knew I didn't want to play Life Cleric, and that's not a shade on Life Cleric. I think Life Cleric is great. Having played one since, is just like, it's insane. It's cleric on steroids. It's cleric on steroids. But I knew I wanted to do something a little bit like different, and I really liked the flavor of Grave Cleric. And obviously, at the time, I was also watching Critical Role, and Caduceus was a Grave Cleric, and
Caduceus, yeah.
I was like, I think he was really cool, but I wanted to like flavor him slightly different.
I was going to say,
flavor.
actually, so my first knowledge of a Grave Cleric was Kirik. Okay, I actually did it the other way around. I remember we were actually playing, and then I remember going, I want to get better at RP, and Matt was going, watch some of these, and I remember watching like Critical Role and going, nope, because I was watching the first episode of their campaign 1.
First 20 episodes we'll just gloss over.
Yeah, they were rough, but I think yes. So what I did is I actually jumped to campaign 2, but I had already seen a Grave Cleric from Kirik, so I then saw it as Caduceus, and I didn't twig him for such a long time that he was a Grave Cleric. And so, again, fair play to both of you for playing such a different character than each other as a Grave Cleric. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And yeah, what is interesting, going back to what Styx said in chat a few minutes ago, there is a lot of theory behind actually, regardless of whether you're a grave cleric or not, it's better to let your characters go down and heal. Mathematically it works better. Just so happens that what the grave cleric does is add that bonus of it. Instead of you having to roll for it, you literally get that maximum. And so we didn't do it that often, and that's interesting because I thought that actually, I'm sure it will happen lower level, but that type of thing of us going down and bouncing back up is quite important. It is a strategy that it does need to know. So yes, I have also read about that, seen shorts about it and everything, about the fact that actually, that is a better way of playing.
Yeah.
However, I do also agree with some of the people who have said that it needs to be changed, and it needs to be that you can't just use going unconscious as a tactic. I think it should be that you come back with a level of exhaustion, because then it has a bit of you have to consider it. It's not a tactic anymore. It's a gamble. It's just something you don't want to have.
There is mechanics for that as well. So in the DM's guide, it talks about mechanic. If somebody goes down, you roll to see what damage they take. So do they lose a limb? And those types. And so there is mechanics for that when you realise players are doing the min-maxing to a whole new level, if you like. So I love watching those videos around how do you get the best out of characters, but the same way I am glad that the three of you just went, I'm going to play my character and I'm going to role play my character. I'm not going to try and make this person the absolute best fighter ever based on the statistics or the best rogue ever. We're just going to roll with it and see what happens. Which is why the reason I asked you the question somehow around the Grave Cleric is because it unlocked something for me that I never would have considered when I started doing this, which was that idea of death. And I talked about it during Malt Magic and More way back then, that one of my favourite book series of all time is the Old Kingdom series.
Absolutely.
And the idea of having multiple precincts of death controlled by the Raven Queen. Would I have been able to do that without a Grave Cleric in the party? Would I? Fuck. No. So, thank you for letting me live out part of my fantasies.
Because I'm also, as both a DM and a player, I'm really interested in the deities of D&D, and I think they are really, really cool. It's a really cool concept. So I knew I wanted to play something sort of related to that, and that's why I was like, Paladin or clerics. Even though, paladins don't need to be deity related, but I think Grave Cleric like mechanically sounded fun, and I also, and then so I went about it like I knew I wanted to play a Grave Cleric, and then I quite like, and we might see this in campaign 2, but I quite like characters that are mechanically dissonant. So like a half-orc cleric is insanity. Like there is an ability that half-orcs have that I've never used. Never, like not once, which is like Savage Attack or whatever it is,
Yeah.
which is whenever you hit, you can re-roll the melee attack. I was like, well, I'm never going to use that in my life, and I didn't. So it's like,
yeah.
I was just interested in having like what happens with what would make a half orc become a cleric, and that was the other thing. And this might like surprise some people, but like I literally went into the game with no backstory for Kirik because at the time I thought that I was going to be like 2 or 3 episodes, because like when Matt and I talked about like me coming in, it was like I felt like, Matt, you were very like, we're just going to see how this works out because I don't know how you're going to gel with these guys, because I didn't really know you. I knew of you, but I think we'd met once before this, which is
it would have been in my
crazy.
Wedding.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
That's the only time you lot had met before.
Yeah, and that's kind of crazy to think about. And so
and just
so
And now look where
we
we are.
are twats, or
nah, you're lovely people.
10:30 every Monday night. It's like, fuck's sake.
Go deal with these morons again.
No, I have missed it. I've missed it.
We have
so like
missed
I
you,
went
to be
in
honest,
with no
mate.
I went in with no backstory, and I think for a long time, like I think still to this day there is not like written stuff about backstory for Kirik. I've got a lot in my head, but like there was a lot of things that I kind of just rolled with it. I think it was not
We
only
have a
it wasn't
very
until,
long
like,
message chain.
yeah, like even stuff like I think I only decided not on the final one, but like on the second to last Heroes Feast that we had, where Kirik described what he was eating. It wasn't until then that I decided, like, hey, what's Kirik's like ancestry? Because obviously one of them is going to be Orc, one of them is going to be something else. And it wasn't until then that I decided what it was. And I love having a backstory, but also now having played Kirik, I feel really like liberated in the fact that I know I can probably play a character without really having a backstory and just like working with the stuff that is presented, which
you
is
raise a good point
fun.
about having a loose backstory, and Matt's point about us RP and how the characters evolved and not just picking the coolest shit. Because I had a loose backstory about I've got daddy issues, and obviously that turned out to be pivotal. But in my head, I wanted to multi-class when Tasha's Cauldron of Everything came out. It's the only reason I wanted to multi-class. But then what I multi-classed into was for an RP reason. But then I always had it in my head, I wanted to be College of Swords, because I thought that was fucking cool. And I had a flaming rapier at the time. And then I had this really cool sword that made me want to kill everybody. So I thought, this is working out pretty good. Then I ended up killing myself with said sword. And I was like, actually, I'm pretty nervous. And then I kind of went off swords. So for an RP reason, I was like, I'm going to go the opposite way to swords. And then when we got more of the prophecy, and I was like, shit, I'm going to be king. I should probably be College of Eloquence, because that's going to go into being a king. That will help with my kingly duties. So the only reason I picked College of Eloquence was for RP reasons. Because the
Tasha's
RP
came in at a perfect moment as well.
Yeah.
Because
then
it
I got
came
rid
in
of
at a
Arcane
point
Trickster
where
as well, from a rogue
Exactly.
perspective, and went Scout Rogue, because it helped us, because we were fucking so busy in the wilderness all the time. I thought Scout Rogue's good, and it gives me the chance to
But that's what
get out of stuff.
And that's what I mean, that subtle rule around when you gain a level, you can now change your subclass, allowed both you and Dave to go, I want to own this character now, rather than having the pre-made shit we'd done before, which is literally, you're going to be a fighter, you're going to be a rogue, and you're just going to pick what you've got from there. It was then, I can reset this character, and I can do what I want now. So I think I've had discussions with all three of you, which have been very in-depth around, I'm not sure whether I want this multi-class, or I don't know if I want this subclass, or what's the pros and cons of this. And watching that, seeing that evolve over, 114 episodes, was immense. Because if you look at the journeys that all three of you have been on, I mean, I had to homebrew a subclass for Samal, because he decided he wanted to do something a bit random, and we did that. Dave, we had to tailor your idea of
yeah, I mean, I started out as
Warlock.
a fighter with arcane spells. I can't remember what the specific subclass of that fighter was.
Echo, no, not Echo Knight.
It's Eldritch fighter.
Eldritch
That's
Knight.
Eldritch
Eldritch
Knight.
Knight.
So
Yeah.
I started out as that, and I remember we were getting to a point. Well, I think it was even like an Eldritch Knight fighter and Warlock, and I was like, Dargon don't do books well, so why and how has he ever read these spells? Seriously, like, this doesn't make sense. And that was because obviously what I was doing is I started out smacking things over the head and going, this is slightly boring in combat, going, let's add something else. So we added Thunderwave, and that's where he also got his nickname from in the middle. So yeah, it was, that's how it evolved. But then obviously it was like, well, the only reason I survived episode 7, if I recall, was the fact that I got some help from the other characters, but also that I was basically, in short, destined to go and meet Timiel down in the chambers, because I had his bloody sword, which again didn't realise. And that is the only reason that I went with Warlock. I don't think I would have done, but it then meant that while I was Warlock, why the hell should I be Eldritch Knight? Right? And it was, let's just get rid of him, because that doesn't work. But I loved the way that it was for the betterment of Warlock, and I think it worked well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there was that moment, because that was the Ironforge arc where Dargon made his decision around, I'd planned 3 puzzles, 3 puzzles that were specific to each of you. I.e. there was a religious-based puzzle, there was a strength-based puzzle, and then I think there was a dexterity-based puzzle. Rogue, fighter, cleric. Dargon decided to go totally left field and think, I'm going to go walk across this religious floor.
Yep.
And the puzzle was, you have to be truly devout to one of these deities to make it across, but Dargon, in the RP moment, or in the role-playing history, was, you were just getting towards that idea of there's gods out there and I can communicate with them. So you stepped on the symbol of Palor and dropped straight through the floor.
It would have been pre-stream, and it was, I think...
That wasn't pre-stream, that was episode 3 or 4. It's really early on.
It is really early on, but the actual decision before that, because I fought in the battle... In the battle ring, whatever that was called.
Oh, the Crucible.
The Crucible, and after that was when I think I had my first dream, and I think it was the fact that that Dargon basically asked, which god am I talking to? Because he didn't know whether it was Cord or Palor. Okay, it turned out that obviously it was going to be Palor, and that is why he was literally split between the two, because he didn't got a clue. So yeah, it again all worked incredibly well, and I hope that.
And then it turns out his true deity was neither.
Yeah, pretty much.
That does bring us on to another good question that we've got from Stick, which was, what's the one thing, a feat, a spell, an ability that you liked most about your character?
Oh, Path to the Grave.
100% Path to the Grave.
Yeah.
For you, yeah, nailed on.
I think Path to the Grave and Inflict Wounds is one of the most broken things I've ever.
Especially is the fact that any cleric can do it. Oh no, not any cleric. Sorry, any grave clerics.
Only the grave cleric.
Only the grave cleric. Yeah, no, that is.
But even like stuff like doing a Path to the Grave for Ander, which happened a couple of times. That is like insane.
Yeah.
Like just doubling the damage of everything.
Natural 20. Yeah, those were the days. You've got to think of one for Bufford as well, Matt. So get your answer ready.
Go on, Danny. What was yours then?
For me, I had quite a few. It's not my favourite, but it was a cool moment when a meteor strike happened and I understood there with evasion like, come at me, bitch, and then nothing happened.
Do you know what? Again, like you said, you stayed out of it a lot, and so evasion didn't really do much for you until it was so important.
That one time.
Until it
so
did.
important.
Until it
and
did.
then it was the best thing in the world.
It was almost comical that it worked. It was like, this wouldn't happen in real life. But my favourite, if I hadn't have chosen College of Eloquence and it was like my fucking I couldn't roll lower than a 25 on persuasion, deception, or anything like that. The whole how we took down Asmodeus wouldn't have happened. I probably wouldn't have become king so quickly. I probably wouldn't have been able to make all of these deals so quickly. It would have been a lot harder to achieve the things we wanted to achieve, I think, if I hadn't have been so goddamn charming.
Oh yeah,
I definitely think
through
Sander
RP, but just through
out-Danny'd
stupid dice
Danny.
rolls. Oh,
Yeah,
his
I
dice
think-
rolls were ridiculous.
Yeah,
and the
that's what I
conning
say.
Asmodeus.
Under definitely out Danny.
Yeah.
And
Conning
the conning
Asmodeus.
Asmodeus is
When you
a
went-
top 5.
When you went roll a persuasion check, I just went 40. You were like, "You motherfucker."
But I'm sat there, and Asmodeus is the god of lies. Like,
Yeah,
he
that's why it's
is
so
the one that
good.
makes deals, twists deals, and then you've got this human rogue who just appears out of fucking nowhere and goes,
So good.
"I'm gonna con this bitch."
So good.
Just sat there looking at my dice, going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And here we go. There we ended up. 3 episodes later, we're going to close the campaign.
Unbelievable.
You're welcome.
Unreal.
Amazing.
I think my
Go on then,
favourite-
Dave.
My favorite ability from Mandos,
Go on.
to say, is you had a couple of really good uses of slow.
Yes.
Slow spell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
true.
good.
If
Yeah.
there is one spell as a DM I hope to never see again, it is slow. And at some point, I am going to get my revenge. Never has one spell fucked me up so much.
I tell you what I hated though, suggestion. Because every time I thought of something cool to do with it, it never fucking worked.
Yeah, no, you
Yeah, suggestion's a tricky one.
Yeah, you didn't have much luck on suggestion, and I have to
Because
say,
most of them weren't humanoids either.
well, there is that. I also never. I basically was waiting for the moment, and it was getting more crucial and more crucial and more crucial for the fact that I never got slowed, or if I did, I don't remember it. But Dargon getting slowed would have been a massive,
Do you
massive.
remember when you
It's
got paralysed in
horrible.
the alleyway and we all got stuck behind you when we were getting
Now
the first
that
shot?
was bad enough. I got frozen and I was just getting butchered, and
We
you
were
guys
stuck
could do
behind you.
nothing about it.
That
well,
was
I think
in
it,
Zapanir's cave, wasn't
Zappy's
it?
Cave, and I think even at one point it
Was
was
it?
like, Danny was like, Anders going to try and like crawl through his legs because this is getting ridiculous. And I loved the fact that we were just stuck. Nothing could happen. So yeah,
that was cool.
okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting mechanic because technically, as a character, you should be able to spend 10 feet of movement, but there's a Goliath in a thin corridor. You're not getting away with that for me.
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely
having it.
makes sense in that
No,
situation.
I
absolutely makes
I don't think any of us were arguing against that particular ruling because I mean, I would have found it a problem if you said, "Oh yeah, you can squeeze by him." I'm like, "Excuse me, what?" He's wearing armor. He has a backpack on. He has a shield. You're not getting past this guy. And that was the point.
No,
It was meant to
Bothrid
be.
would have had to
don't
become a
you-
fly.
Yeah.
Just to,
It'd have been, "Don't you worry. These guys aren't getting past me. Unfortunately, you're not going past me either."
Yeah.
oh dear. So,
What was
Bothrid,
Dargon's
favourite
what was
feature.
cool?
Oh yeah, no, let's go, Dave.
What was my favourite? If I can have it, I will narrow it down. But in a broad sense, it was actually the later part when I got manoeuvres. Honestly,
Yeah.
a fighter is pointless without manoeuvres, and that is my opinion. I know that there'll be many who will say that is wrong. And again, I am very glad that I used it before I then saw someone else using it exceptionally well. But I think that it is, to be honest, I actually think that manoeuvres for a fighter are, again, like I've just said, pretty much the point of a fighter, but also how you can actually expand into being an RP in fight. Right? Moving around, you blocking your friends from their enemies, switching between them, goading these people to you, all of that I thought absolutely brilliant. And the fact that I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm a big character and I have a massive sword. You're damn right I'm going to have an extra D10 out of this because I'm going to hit you really fucking hard. And this isn't due to rage. This isn't due to just being, that there is a, I'm a master with this sword, and I'm not using Great Weapon Master. So that point of being able to say, do you know what? Yeah, this is when I use my extra ability, I thought was fantastic.
I don't think it was a great weapon either, though, was it? It's a long sword.
No, exactly. So that's why I didn't pick Great Weapon Master as a feat, and we did talk about that being a possibility. But again, we were like, well, it's not a great weapon. And that's why Great Weapon Master would never have worked. Otherwise, I probably would have picked it. But Maneuvers gave me it in the fact that I could have advantage when I then finally chose. And that was what I found really interesting. The one I really like and didn't use enough was the one that I could give advantage to other people. And I think that one was awesome. And I do remember a few times when I'm like, actually, Ander is after Dargon here. I need to use it. It didn't always work, but sometimes it did. And I'm like, that was brilliant. Because I could never get, was it Eldritch Blast to hit? Or no, Guiding Bolt. I can never get Guiding Bolt to hit because I was just a low-level Warlock. And, it was never going to work, and that's fine. So, there be.
Kirik Sentinel needs a nominal mention because that was other than slow, that's what pissed Matt off the most, I think.
No, I think if I had to choose between Sentinel and slow pissed me off more. Because Sentinel I can deal with. It's like one time, D20, done. But when you've created or using a monster that's got multi-attack or all these different features, and then it gets slowed and you're like, well, I can do one thing now and I can barely move. It is the most soul-destroying thing as a dungeon master you ever have to go through.
No, I've got one other, and I think Samal's about to say it, and if he doesn't, I'll say it.
Yeah, what about when you attack one of the party members, and then the cleric just uses
and
that
then
attack
all the damage gets redirected onto...
Yes.
So speaking of that, speaking of Deluin in that moment where you've got, I can't remember, there was a Nalfeshni and one of the multi-armed devils or demons who gets like 7 attacks and used it, and somehow just went, no.
And it's just like, and
hit the Nalfeshni.
Disappeared off the map.
Just like, he's gone, just dead, killed their own. Yeah, so, I mean, this shit happens, doesn't it? But it's, I mean, I say it's soul-destroying, but in those moments, I think... But I think I'm loving it as much as you guys are. Like the whole Dimension Door moment, where I can't let you do this. As a DM, sat there going, this is fun, can we do some more?
I also remember
I live for those moments.
That episode, I think it was like, we're getting on a bit, and then it was like, okay, this is clearly going to wrap up. We're going to have this Kirik Dimension Doors, and we're like, okay, we're in this for a bit. And it was like possibly not one of the latest games. It was getting up there for one of the latest games I think we ever did. Like finished at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was to the point that we were like, but we are carrying on because this is so much fun. Just the whole thing about it was
there was a lot of messages flying around in the background. Are we still going? Do we need to stop? Should we pause and pick this up next week? No, we're seeing this through.
Vampires and we're escaping on an airship. This is the coolest thing we've ever done.
Yeah. It was a proper prison break from Dracula's mansion. It was just amazing.
But also the fact that I, out of nowhere, didn't talk to anyone about it. Went, oh, by the way, I'll surrender myself to your vampire fangs, and Kirik just went, quick as a flag. No, you fucking won't, you idiot. See you later.
Yeah, never gonna.
But that's what I say. There's those moments of role play where you, as a group, and somehow you talk about the fact that we discussed maybe 1 or 2 episodes, and then you joined for the full campaign, and now we're going into campaign 2. It's a case of those moments where I sit there and think, these guys have got it. They're a proper team. Like, there's other campaigns I've DM'd since doing this where there's moments you sit and think, you guys really need to start working together a bit more. Like, otherwise, this is all going to go Pete Tong.
I mean, on that point,
the three of you just moments.
I am excited though that, like any good start to a campaign, there's a very good chance that we are not going to trust each other. We're not going to work well with each other. Our characters are going to not dwell, not gel, and I am there for it because that is how they are meant to start.
I rewatched
50 or 60
first episode. I rewatched the first episode a couple of days ago, and it is hilarious to me right now in that episode, and is so distrusting at Kira at the time. And to see where those two characters end up in the end is just like, oh man, character growth.
We ended up doing Bible studies together by the end. But to be fair, though, if you think about it, I come from a con men, a band of thieves, a horrible background where I had no family, and the Theo Godden was my role model, right? Which is obviously terrible. So, and I come from a world where trust is earned through the actions that you take, rather than if you was a new member of the gang, you'd have to earn your status. So it was kind of like that. You had to earn your status and through actions. And I think you saved my life within 2 or 3 episodes. I was like, oh, this guy's all right.
But also, in a very similar thing, so very shortly after you getting that sword, and after Dargon nearly dying, we got away from a battle with Theo Godden, and Dargon had his sword up to Anders' throat, and we'd been together for a while, how cool, again, that starting point. Again, before that, we weren't RPing, and therefore we were just two characters, right, where we're moving on to this next thing, we're killing this next thing. And by the way, guys, yes, I did at one point, I think, this was prior to streaming, I had to go off and sort something out for 15-20 minutes or something like that while we were chatting, and of course Ander just goes off, finds a green dragon and kills it, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
Which I made sure there was a repercussion for in the campaign. So yes. Vertigal, the brother of the green dragon, that Ander decided to just murder hobo on the way down to Moonbright from the Mockmaster's Keep. That was one of those moments where I was rolling random encounters and it was like, young green dragon. Okay, Ander and Bothrid, you find a young green dragon. What are you going to do with it? We're going to kill it. Okay.
To be fair, though, I did make armour out of its scales, and that was pretty cool.
You did. That's one thing I think we did early on, but as we got through the campaign, you pulled away from doing it, like harvesting and the old survival aspects of D&D, if you like.
Yeah.
Because I remember very early on in the campaign, Dargon being like, I want to make potions of healing. I want to understand what the ingredients were. So I went and created, these are the ingredients you make, or you need. These are all the bits you need. And then we never fucking visited it again.
No, I have one of 3 ingredients in my bag of holding still. I have the dried ephedra in the bag of holding, still there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And honestly, ever since Kirik arrived, it was like, oh, healing potions don't matter anymore.
No. I think that was it. It was like, we've got a healer now, bollocks to it.
You still haven't told us Bothrid's favourite feat, or your favourite feat of Bothrid's.
Bothrid's favourite feat.
I've got a question for you, Matt.
I think Wild Shape was always funny for me, because Bothrid got to mess around with you lot as characters. So Anders' fear of spiders, obviously got to play around with that. That being said, really late in the campaign, actually, when Monsters of the Multiverse came out, and I changed Bothrid's race to meet the new Hobgoblin race, which worked perfectly for Bothrid, because it's all then about, actually, Hobgoblins are Fey creatures. They've come from the Feywild, and just that whole change for me allowed Bothrid to do things that were more in line with being a druid and being of Fey nature, and is part of the reason at the end of the campaign Bothrid has disappeared off into the Feywild.
Yeah.
Not just the fact that he's a druid anyway, but then being able to do those help and the Fey gift abilities with Bothrid were amazing. But yeah, no, I think Wild Shape will always for me give me some of those funniest moments where, why don't you just transform into something small or something that can go do this? Boof, ice spider. Anders shitting himself in the corner. So those moments. And of course the Crag Cat, which was Bothrid's go-to. Always Bothrid's go-to was the Crag Cat.
That brings me on to the question that we've got to ask. I don't think we've answered it yet, and it will be very interesting. So the question for the whole party, but I think I know that all of our answer is the same. What was one interaction with an NPC that wasn't supposed to be important, that stood out among others, and why? Now, this is from JK. I'm sure we have other answers that we can go to, but what is the main one from us guys?
I think, because JK's other question around any NPCs that was not supposed to play a big role that did, the answer to both is kind of the same for me, and that is Bothrid. So we came up a band of hobgoblins, we killed them all, we captured one, questioned him, decided to keep him around as a hostage, and then he developed into what it was Bothrid's character. So he was supposed to be an insignificant thing for us to kill, and we kept him around. But for me, the interaction that wasn't supposed to be important, that always stood out for me, was fresh fish, because he was never supposed to be important. He was always just supposed to be a bloke in a market selling fish. But when Matt did that voice and shouted out fresh fish, I actually nearly weed myself. I was laughing that much. And I thought, that's the best NPC I've ever met in my life. And the fact that we just kept calling back to it, and no one, it's an in-joke that nobody else knows, because it was like episode fucking -10. And like, he's never been, and he came up right at the end. And for me, I feel like we're the only ones who remember him. But that's why he's so great.
Go on, Samal, have you got one?
Yeah, so I think it was sea meat, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that fresh fish guy came in.
No. Sorry, if I may, I believe that fresh fish was actually when
was he
Danny, when Danny went to Moonbright for his 2-3 weeks off.
Oh, you're right.
And he went to his College of Eloquence,
right.
and he was meant to to go to speak to someone, and he found fresh fish
as a test.
Indeed.
Yeah. So that's
yes.
where he was.
No, I do remember that now. I had to bring fresh fish back for the final episode, because where did they go when Moonbright was destroyed?
Yeah.
Man, that guy survived the nuking of Moonbright. That dude, like, what a life!
Slippery fella.
What a life!
Yeah.
My
the guy outside Anders' room when I'm ploughing Mirabelle. That's brilliant.
Can you really say ploughing?
No, she was pegging me. Let's be honest. She was ploughing me.
My NPC is a fun one because I think that when we started, you guys already had some baggage with some of the NPCs that were presented. So myself, both as player and as character, and because of the nature of the character that I made, wasn't like the connections with the NPC just wasn't really there, and it was more about like Kirik learning from the other characters what being alive and what, like, death has no meaning without good life sort of thing. That's sort of the character journey that he goes through. So I think both answers to those questions to me are actually Theo Gordon, because I think that is such a I think that's probably the biggest curveball I threw to Matt, and like kudos to you for like running with it at the time. And I remember that it was something that as a player I had planned to do, and I sticked with it for about I want to say a good 2 or 3 months. That I was like, this is something like when I was looking at like what Kirik's going to get next when he levels up and stuff like that, I was planning ahead, and I was like, oh, this is potentially something that I can do, and like, what are the implications of it? Would Kirik do it? Like, and I just thought that would create such an interesting like conflict with the rest of the party. To be like, does the good of this outweigh the bad? You know, the implications and stuff. So yeah, so I think like the whole bringing back Theo Gordon and the role that Theo Gordon played then in the final battle.
And what I liked about that move is
Theo is.
I really didn't know how to play it, because obviously I killed Theo and I ended up hating him and I killed him, and then I was like, right, I'll celebrate killing him and I'll rub it in his face. But then I ended up coming full circle with it, and I was like, well, actually, if I want to get into the Raven Queen afterwards, because I promised Kirik that I'd keep the temple going, I can use this as my gateway into the Raven Queen and what she's all about. And that's how I got to there's redemption in death thing, and then it actually worked out really well for how I ended Anders' character arc, because then I got to get closure by killing an enemy, but also get closure by reconnecting with him as he once was. So that actually, I don't know if you planned for that to happen, but it actually worked out really well in the end, I think, for me,
No,
how
so
I
I think-
wanted to appear at the end.
So Theo was meant to, I think, if I think back to early days of us playing, when I started to introduce the Eladrin, the Dark Eladrin with the red eyes, and it was always meant to be, they were just going to be the big bad, some sort of eldritch type character, arcane character, and then the more we went through, I'm like, I need to make this bigger. So then he became an agent, and yeah, the whole Feywild Phaliad arc bit with the other temple, which at the point you guys didn't realize what that temple was or where it is or what it does. There's just this sword that controls something, and you drop a magic field, poof, Theogodin's there in a flash, you're fighting him, and Ander takes him out. And I was like, okay, that's that done. Next phase. And then Kirik brings him back, and it's a case of, now I can have some fun. Now we can play around with this character a little bit, because he's no longer under the influence of Asmodeus. He is himself again and bound to the Raven Queen. That in itself means one thing, and the fact that he's got almost his own agency back. There was a history there that obviously is off screen, so to speak, between Ander and Theogodin, where at some point during that time, Theogodin becomes the agent of Asmodeus. So it's how that then plays out, hence the whole, almost like we say Ander's got daddy issues. Were those daddy issues were with his father, or were they with Theogodin? And for me, I like to think they were more with Theogodin than they were with...
Yeah. The main thing was, he was my father figure growing up. He turned into an agent, so then Johannes took me under his wing, which lent more to me changing to scout, because I then lent more towards Johannes as my character developed rather than Theo's influence. And then it turns out that Theo actually killed my real dad, so then that presented a daddy issue where my dad killed my real dad, which then, but it all came full circle, and I got closure, and it all worked out for the best.
I was going to say, you weren't actually going to get closure. Ander wasn't going to get closure if it wasn't for that he was brought back. And I only realised that right at the end. You know, that was crazy.
I definitely wanted to play on that towards the end, though. When Ander dropped, I was like, this is Theo's moment. Right here. This is the moment Theo gets to have his redemption.
When Theo was the third one to do the ritual, I was like,
yeah. That's very cool.
So much good stuff. So I mean,
I think another NPC I really like, is actually Freyton, because spoiler alert, it's actually a PC of mine.
It is. It's not an NPC at all. It's a player character from our one shot that we did at the place. So yeah, it was. And I think everybody got it in the end. But Freyton is Reiko's brother.
Yeah.
Older or younger, we didn't quite decide. But is the antithesis of Reiko. Like, just rage monkey, out for the gold.
I remember. Yeah, I remember sending you.
Gods.
I remember sending you a message being like, "Here's my idea. What about if I play Reiko's brother, who is a barbarian, with the path of the what is it?
Was it Berserker?
It's not. It's not. He's not Berserker. He's the.
Was it Battle Rager? I can't remember now. I'll tell you in about
he's the one
4 seconds.
that has like the divine influence or whatever. Yeah, so that was the one, and I remember sending that message being like, yeah, Freyton, he's the brother of Reiko, and Matt was just like, absolutely. Yeah. Path of the Zealot, yes.
It was nice because Path of the Zealot, yeah. So, but it was nice because obviously Danny and Dave, you guys couldn't make it to the one shot, so we couldn't do another episode of the Wardens. But what we could do was something that ties in and actually sets up some of the other stuff that's going to happen in the campaign.
Yeah.
So there was the whole Johannes and Thalania interaction, and Mephisto in the Black City, and then Vraco's brother just happens to be there. It was a lot of fun, that episode, I'm going to say. So if you've not watched it, not caught up with it, please do. I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, it allowed me to sort of think, what can I do to lay some almost like Easter eggs and spoilers for what else is to come, while at the same time giving people hopefully a fulfilling one-shot that did the job at the time.
Yeah.
Timings were a bit rough, but we got there.
And allowed me to play a martial character, which was fun.
It did.
A couple of NPCs then that I think, and this is going to be sort of a broader, but I'll keep it short. One of them was actually Vraco. Now I know that as a mentor for Dargon, obviously, like you were saying with Ander and Johannes. To be honest, I'm guessing he probably played a larger part than we were all expecting. To be honest, because he got nicked by the vampires, and then we tried to get him back, and he wasn't well, and then he was causing issues, and then the whole party had to bloody well kill him, all right? And then he came back afterwards. So I mean, I think he probably has certainly stuck in there more than I thought than just that standard mentor. He had a much bigger field going on. It wasn't really much of a major interaction, but I think it did change how Dargon was feeling about himself when we got trapped in that very airship that went down, leading to Vraco ending up in the Feywild. Was when Dargon went to go and get Geo from the top of the from the top, and again it was no one else was doing anything apart from just battening down the hatches, and he launched himself up to go make sure she was safe. And that, I think, was just that actually, I think, spurred him into what he was doing. Like, why was he here? And it's to make sure that everyone's safe. So that was what I thought was a very interesting one. And then a couple of other ones. There was the kid from Greenflower, which I think had a marked impact on the whole party. Because again, it was just not a lot of angry people who are trying to fight back. This was a kid who's just trying to live, and he's getting hit by this. So that, I think, also brought it to realism. And I thought that actually that was quite a thing. And then I think the last one would be how a simple but quite brilliant shop owner who just gave us stuff and nicked our gold became quite important. And I think Mephisto needs to be on a t-shirt somewhere.
I love Mephisto. One of my favourite characters to roleplay, because he did pilfer the absolute fuck out of all of you.
Yeah, I mean, we had the money
the prices
to burn,
that he was saying, I'm going to give you a 60% discount.
Yeah,
so,
back in the days when I had... the only reason we had so much gold to spend is because I bet on you to win in the Crucible. And Matt gave me, he goes, well, Dagon's not going to win. You get 180 to 1 odds. I was like, all right. And then you won, and I had £500,000.
That gold lasted.
There was a lot of gold.
Long.
I just kept letting the bet ride, and the odds got stupider each time, and we ended up winning. And it was I was Elon Musk for a bit.
That was the first time I introduced the idea of the Warforged in our world as well, and what they mean, which we've not fully explored, so I'm not going to relay any further spoilers. But yeah, if you're talking about favourite NPCs, for me, is Feltag, because how many times did you lot leave him in different places? Like, Feltag has been everywhere in Nylin, mainly because the Wardens went, oh, come with us, we'll take you to Captain Swift. Whoops, we've left you in Moonbright.
But it's the fact that he was always so positive despite the situation. Like, this is great. I'm just serving tables now. And it's like, you're like a ninth level.
He became a barman for a while. So, and then he got his armor upgrade and all polished and blue.
The reverse of JK's question which is an NPC I didn't think was important, but it turned out to actually be quite important in the subplots, and that was a buyer.
Yes.
Because we met him in Teameat, and he just happened to be the leader of the local gang. We ended up robbing him. He escaped through the tunnels, but then it turned out he was instrumental in the death of Lena's brother, and he was undercover in Mantineer as the head of the guard. he was part of a network of spies all over Nyland, the Serpent's Cloak and all of that stuff. And it was like, I just thought he was just a gang leader in Seameat, and it turned out to be involved in all of the subplots that we never fully resolved or explored.
Can we confirm?
So how about the mute shopkeeper in
He sacrificed
Seameat
himself,
then?
didn't he?
I was going to say,
The
he
dwarf-
sacrificed himself.
The dwarf who we asked to look after the Seameat Tower for us, and then we never went back.
Oh yeah, them. Yeah, the
Yeah.
ones we sent like 3 months rent towards it, and you know, and then yeah.
And
nothing
who did they turn out to be?
didn't we see them right near the end?
Right
Professional
at the
wrestlers.
end,
Right at
strung
the
up,
end. Yeah.
strung up amongst 12 other individuals. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know if that one hit or not, but yeah,
No,
they were one of the.
I should really say my favourite NPC is Mirabelle,
Avatars.
because I did marry her.
That is true.
But I have to say, Fresh Fish is still
there
number
was-
one.
I think there's so many NPCs that I just like threw in there as like, okay, you guys need to get a ship across from Seameat to Greenflower.
Oh,
How are we
yeah.
going to do that? We'll have a crew of
What the hell?
not
did we
necessarily
start calling
pirates,
Captain
but
Swift?
swashbucklers. You called Swift everything, Swifty, and
We did
then
antagonise quite a few
another
characters
NPC
early
that
on.
you just ignored for months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Although
So-
there was
but
very,
I think
there was
that
very,
whole
very, very-
crew as well.
yeah.
Go on.
I was going to say that there was one moment, yeah, well, obviously, where they were in for months in the Feywild, and we didn't realise that popping around for 3 days meant that they were in dire straits.
We left
Really
them in the
didn't
Feywild
know.
for ages.
Yeah. They were in there for a long time
Yeah, yeah.
because obviously Vraco fully turned in that time
Yeah.
as well. So I was like, but that also was that was just after the moment where Kirik got feeble-minded, which is clearly a fan favourite moment.
The first
with
time.
the strange, the first time.
Does that resonate somehow?
It did.
Not me
But that
creating
was-
my campaign 2 character
and
to be completely impervious to feeble mind. No, absolutely not.
You're Magneto, is that what you're saying? You've got the helmet.
Hey,
But
it's
there was
a
those-
non-combat.
Because one of the things early on in Nylund was about the fact that there was these like wild magic storms, and that was all tied into this idea of the primordials. So as you started to knock out the primordials, they just stopped. And I was so tempted right at the last moment with Asmodeus to think, oh yeah, wild magic storm, let's just throw some shit that happens, see what happens. But no, so obviously the worm that feeble-minded Kirik in the first instance was as a result of the wild magic storm that not only took the airship out and sent you guys outside Phalead and everybody else in the Feywild, also this aberration then just randomly appears. Feeble-minds Kirik, and you then have to figure out what the fuck we do.
We did not
We've got-
realise for a
we've got
long
some-
time that wild magic did not carry on. Like I think
Yeah.
we had to be told that we haven't noticed it for a while. We're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
We have got a hard-hitting journalistic question from Stick in the chat, though. It's very important, and I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. Fuck, marry, kill. Raven Queen, Everlight, Queen of Darkness. Which one we do? I'll tell you which one I'm going to fuck.
Apparently
the
I've
Queen
got a
of
habit of
Dark-
making sexy NPCs.
You won't. I've wanked over quite a few of
Gods,
them.
man.
I
Gods.
would fuck the Queen of Darkness because I reckon she'd be into some weird shit. I would marry the Everlight because she'd be a nice person to be around long term. And I'd kill the Raven Queen because technically you're just sending her home, aren't you?
No, you have to take a place. That's the problem.
Oof. Oh, there's a part 2 as well.
Oh, hang on. Fuck, marry, kill Asmodeus, Theogod, and the White
There's a
Dragon.
part 2. Asmodeus, Theogod, and Zapanir.
Or I would.
I'm definitely going to kill Zapanir because Lich.
Yeah.
I would.
Nobody
fuck
needs to be humping a
Asmodeus
crusty old body.
because he's got a sexy dungeon. I would kill Theo because I've already killed him, and that's incest if I marry him. And I would marry Zapanir so I could do what Donkey did from Shrek and have like weird dragonborn babies.
Yeah, but that's nightmare fuel because they would not come out as like half dragon, half human, they would come out as weird zombie dragon human things because it was a Dracolich and not a full-on dragon.
100%.
Which now is, I'm going to go homebrew that exact creature right now.
We don't need it. We don't need that.
Also,
Custom monsters, zombie dragonborns.
That does bring us on to, what was it? We were 6 hit points away from killing the Heart of Zapanir, and we dropped it or something? I had a...
The bloke
like,
just
I
got
don't
away
think
with it,
in
he
that
ran over
moment
me.
you knew it was a Dracolich, though.
No, I had no idea.
I think it was just, this is the heart of some sort of spell that's going on. Because that made me laugh in that point. There were 7 different pockets of people.
Yeah.
And we started killing them.
And it was...
That helped.
You started killing them, which just fueled the spell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew we were bringing something
Brilliant.
back. What we were trying to do is we don't know whether destroying it or running away with it is the good idea, but so we started to run away with it, and of course I rolled a bad strength roll.
Which is hilarious to think about now. At the end
absolutely
of the
brilliant. I mean, I don't know what was that box covered in? Vaseline? I don't know. Just
it's like Danny when you said earlier, it's like, oh, I just rolled really bad in stealth. I'm like, what?
How'd you do
When
that?
did that happen?
Early on in the campaign.
That's something I'm looking forward to in campaign 2, is to be like rolling and just being like, well, my rolls are just bad now because it's like
+2.
I am looking forward to us going back to non-characters that are up there in terms of strength and power, like back to almost raw, early characters, fresh characters that don't really know what they're doing, have no idea what's going on, and have to just ride the wave.
That brings you around.
There's a very specific skill check that I'm looking forward to rolling in campaign 2.
I definitely... I mean, I do know that obviously I wanted Dargon to be a good fighter, and I didn't mind if he wasn't good persuading people, doing other stuff like that, but I wanted him to be a good fighter. That's what it was. So, that was fine. Again, I didn't want him to be making massive persuasion checks and stuff like that. Again, not his thing. And stealth, I'm glad that he basically made no good stealth rolls. So all of that type of stuff, I think, went well. What I do think though is, I definitely want to find for campaign 2 a weakness that really has roots in their personality. I really want that to come through, because I just find that brilliant and great, and I think that more than something they're good at, I think actually can bring them up.
like seen a little bit, so like a clumsy rogue, or the NPC a bard who was really shit at playing the trumpet every time I walked in the room. Just something like that.
Just all of it. I mean, in our one shot, I've kind of wanted to roll. We don't get a chance to really role play out much, but the fact that my character's rather inept.
Spoilers.
Really, I'm not saying any more. I'm just saying he's rather inept, and I just love the fact that fits in, and it just But that's the point. In one episode, I'm gelling with him. Like, I love this character, and I think
that's something.
But this shows
I
the
definitely
journey.
Need to do more in campaign 2 is, although my big flaw was, shiny, I want to touch it. That kind of didn't work in later campaign, but I want to. There's a flaw for my character in campaign 2 that I want to actually use more in RP, not just to. I'm going to go open the chest. You know what I mean? I want to. I've got.
And that brings me on to a bit that I think when people are using things like D&D Beyond, it's the bit they just don't pay much attention to, is that whole idea of bonds, flaws, ideals, and I forget what the fourth one is. People just pick them at random, whereas actually if you play on them, your character can be so unique and so well-rounded as well, because you'll play to that bond, you'll play to that flaw, and it really opens you up in that. It gives you those triggers for roleplay. And I think going back to what you were saying about how in one episode you've connected with a character more than you probably did with Dargon in the first few sessions that we played.
Yeah.
Because your mindset now has shifted from, I'm not just playing a smashy game where I can go level up. I can really influence the way this story plays out, and this, what really what people who are watching get out of this in terms of the way I play this character. Which is why the one shot for me, or the mini series, has been I've lost my shit so many times because I'm trying to keep up with you two. Role playing in those moments is just ridiculous.
I also like the idea of picking personality traits, bonds and flaws that are a dichotomy to each other. So somebody who
Absolutely.
is really drawn in by the love of information and solving a mystery, but then they've also got so much wanderlust that they can't concentrate on it long enough to actually figure it out and solve it. And they've got loads of them on the go, and they never actually finish a single mystery or solve a single problem.
So what you're saying is your
describing
character has
ADHD,
ADHD. Yeah, I was just going to say your character has ADHD.
ADHD, yeah.
Giveaway.
Lucky definitely has
There we
ADHD.
go. Lucky does. So yeah, there's some spoilers there for Witches and Wildlights Part 1. I think in that moment, let's go take a short break. Let's all go chill out for a moment, and then we'll come back. There's obviously a lot we still need to get through and a lot more questions we need to ask. But yeah, stick around, folks.
Questions in the stick from chat we haven't touched.
Yeah, we'll smash out the questions after break. So
we will do that first thing when we come back.
Yeah, see you in a minute. Oh, hello.
Hey,
hello.
What's happening?
Question time. Here we go.
It is question time.
It is question time, and we are therefore going to start off with, I think, it's an absolute cracker, and it's going to complete for all of us, and I'm going to ask everyone else to say theirs first before I do mine. So, if your character, and for this one, Matt, I think you can take Bothrid.
It's got to
if
be
your
Bothrid.
character got teleported into our world, what is the one thing they'd love the most and the one thing they'd absolutely despise?
Oh, I know what my answer is for this.
Fuck.
I don't.
I think there was two things I'd love. Considering how injured we got, modern medicine, that'd be helpful. But considering the amount of travelling we did, either aeroplanes or Uber is probably what I would like the most.
I was expecting Ander to say OnlyFans, to be honest.
No, I was expecting Pornhub.
The thing
I'm not going to lie.
Ander's going to despise the most is online, assuming he isn't married to Mirabelle, right? Online dating / OnlyFans / internet in general, because how can he get away with stuff when everything's on the internet? I can't lie to people because there'll be evidence. Imagine a 10-year-old tweet from Ander resurfacing as he became king. It would just derail his whole kingdom.
Oh boy.
So here's a question then, as a side question to this, to think about while we're answering. What would the name of your character's Tinder profile be? I mean, it's a bit of a moot point for Kirik, because would Kirik ever be on it?
Kirik would not have Tinder.
No.
Kirik would absolutely not have social media. You would not understand it.
I was going to say he doesn't even.
And I think
what would your character get cancelled for?
He wouldn't even.
I'll tell you what.
Do it as a joke. He wouldn't be on there just to troll people.
Ander would have got cancelled. Can you remember when we first met Mephisto and he was trying to rush me into buying something?
Mephisto?
Hold your horses.
Mephisto?
Mephisto. And I said to Mephisto, hold your horses, because he's a centaur. I would get cancelled for that, because that's technically racist against centaurs, so that's what I'd get cancelled for.
That is true. You did
I've
say
forgotten that moment. I mean, I know what Bothrid would hate, which is just the general people, like the whole overpopulation thing would really piss Bothrid off.
He would hate cities.
He doesn't do.
Trees.
Yeah, he's not that sort of social person. What would he love? Jesus.
Deliveroo.
No, that's not the answer. What would Bothrid love? I'm gonna have to think about that one. I know what he would hate.
Wouldn't he hate?
Sort of says a lot when it's easy to think about what you hate.
He would fucking hate the zoo, right?
He would.
The cooking channel.
Yeah.
He'd love the cooking channel.
Gardener's World.
Yeah, probably. I was thinking this, like, what would he get cancelled for? Slapping Gordon Ramsay in the face.
Oh my god, no. Yeah, but
British
so
Bake Off,
hard.
Paul Hollywood would say his cake was shit, so he'd turn into a crag cat and bite his head off.
Yeah, he'd eat Paul Hollywood and turn him into some sort of bake.
I'm kind of Bothrid at 3 a.m. just watching the cooking channel. That's just an image in my head right now.
I think a Bothrid and Gino D'Acampo cooking show would be amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Gino, if you're
I'm
watching,
gonna
I'm more than happy to roleplay Bothrid while you cook food.
Andrew would be a game show host, wouldn't he? That's what would happen.
Oh, God. Can you imagine? It'd be like Family Feud or Family Fortunes, as it's called in this country.
Yeah.
No, it'd be one of those weird Japanese game shows where it's like somebody getting sucked off by
smacked
another.
have to like make the
Just
show.
constantly.
I was going to go with the supernatural like link there. Nutcracker!
I was going to say, that episode of Supernatural absolutely gets me howling every time.
Love that. Every time. If the Wild Mother had wheels, she would have been a bike. Woo.
That's what Gino D'Acampo
Yeah.
said on.
That's
this
what Gino
morning.
D'Acampo said.
I know. Yeah.
Well, what would our character's favourite TV
good
show
stuff.
be?
The thing is, I'm blanking on pretty much all of these
Gardener's
questions
World.
for Dargon. Like,
Gardener's World for Bothrid.
what would Dargon's be? Game of Thrones? I don't know.
Easy.
For Kirik, it'd be Songs of Praise. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
Absolutely, 100%.
That one's property. I can just imagine Kirik sat in... Oh, no. Sorry. Oh,
Whilst,
mental images.
Whilst doing cross stitch, just watching Songs of Praise.
100%.
Anders, I think.
It wouldn't be, though. He'd, like, have it on in the background while he's just there, I don't know, mutilating some vampire.
Dargon's would be like Takeshi's Castle, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, actually, that's quite right. Yeah, just can you imagine Jim
Oh,
just
no.
like sitting there?
Surely
With,
Dargon's has got to be like Ninja Warrior.
No, Dogon would 100% be wrestling. Let's
no,
not
of
kid
course.
ourselves
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
Like-
Of course. Yeah, you know,
Would
because
be right.
he'd full on be believing the fact that you can get up after being hit round the head with a chair. Because he would be like, "I am fine. What are you on about? That is just a stupid chair, right?"
I tell you what,
real.
give us all
Oh,
Vietnam
would it be
flashbacks,
UFC
though.
or wrestling,
Game
though?
of Thrones.
Oh yeah, no. If it was like the proper. Oh yeah. You know,
Imagine us coming out
Go on
of
then.
Nylund and then seeing Game of Thrones as a TV show. That would fucking send us loopy, wouldn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I think most of the
kind
characters
of
would
what
be
we
there
lived
like,
at.
it's a fair representation.
We'd be like, yeah, we've seen it all before.
Yeah.
Like,
This is pretty tame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
undead coming over a wall.
Fair.
In there, mate.
Yeah. You had a wall
made
to
the
save
wall
you. What are
bigger.
you on about? You know what you blathering about?
No, I think it would have been more, you've got a wall, we've got a Kirik.
I think Andy would be really into those shows where people, you know, like Storage Wars, where they bid on storage lockers to see what's inside them. It's all about the loot.
We are-
All of it.
He
We
would
are
be
literally
livid.
alienating.
He would be
we're literally
livid with the people
alienating
who did
anyone
well.
that isn't.
He would be
These are all
fuming with the
British
people who
shows.
did
Storage Wars is on European television.
Yeah, I was gonna say alienating anyone that isn't UK or US. Like,
well. Right
Those
then.
programs,
So,
yeah.
what other questions have we got around here then?
Oh, the JK's questions
have to
about
find them,
DM
right?
hints that were really obvious
Yes.
that we missed.
So,
Ooh.
Apart from Delywin.
yeah, let's say we know the Delaware
Well,
one.
no,
but
because I
any
don't
hints
think that was that
dropped?
obvious. I don't think that was that obvious.
I mean, you made it
Obvious
very,
hindsight, I
very
suppose.
obvious that we were going to Shiver Spire far too early on. So that again wasn't exactly dropping a hint. That was, guys, you're in trouble. But
Hints that were obvious. Ooh, it's a good one, because I think there was a lot of stuff that at the time you missed, but then coming back to it, you're like, oh. So I don't say Deluim was that obvious, but it was a big one. I think a buyer was probably a big glaring, this guy's
yeah,
definitely a thief. I think the Malt Masters themselves
That's a good shout.
I was
because they
dropping
came in as the
hints about
Almighties.
them. Yeah, I was dropping hints about what they were very early on, and it went
Yeah.
totally unbeknownst until we started to get. And I think this is more just generally, like, that's just the nature of the way the plot worked. I could drop those hints early on, and it meant fuck all to you anyway, because you don't know what the ultimate story arc of what's going on is. There's probably a couple of others, like again the mute Smith in Seameat being the champion of Moradin is not obvious, but you just totally glossed over it. And my funniest moment is the fact that I forgot that in one of our episodes, forgot that he was meant to be a mute, and started speaking, so I had to introduce a twin brother at that point.
Who was Welsh, Irish, and Scottish all in the same conversation.
Yeah. It was one of those episodes where all of my accents went just totally out the window. I am not a voice actor by any means whatsoever. I'm not even an actor. It's just I make this shit up on the fly.
You do a sterling job because, to be honest, I sometimes struggle to do one. So
No, but that's the thing, right? I always used to take the piss out of you for getting the accents wrong. Says the guy whose Anders voice is the exact same as my voice. That's a coincidence. So, but then I watched a thing.
I'm expecting big things in C2.
Oh boy!
I'm going to speak in Mandarin. I'm going to speak Mandarin. And don't get your hopes up for campaign 2. Just put it that way. But what I ended up watching a thing about how to role play, like YouTube videos and stuff, and it's like never take the mickey out of somebody doing an accent. And I was like, oh shit, I feel guilty now. So it's like if they can't do a French accent, they're not being French. They're being a guy whose accent just happened to be from this made up place. So it doesn't matter that it's not quite French because it's a made up place with a made up accent. So it can be whatever the fuck it wants to be. And then I
saw
really
the most heartwarming thing ever on, I think it was Instagram the other day, totally not related to our campaign, but about that whole idea is the fact that there was a DM who had started a campaign in the US, and one of his characters, or one of his players, was Spanish, and so they struggled with English and needed a translator. But he then turned around and said, okay, your character's an elf, so Elvish in our world is now Spanish. So you speak in Elvish. Your character is fluent Elvish and speaks in Elvish, and we need then a translator for your character. That for me is the most wholesome D&D moment. I was like, this is why this game is so cool, because it can be as inclusive as you need it to be, and regardless of what your background is, who you are, where you come from, you just bring that to the game and you can make it work. I love that about this game.
We had
so somehow we're going to speak Portuguese in C2.
In the previous campaign that I was running, we had 2 rogues in the party.
Yeah.
They were both Portuguese players, and so Thieves Cant just became Portuguese. And they would speak Thieves Cant. It was just the 3 of us that understood what was happening.
Which we need to release the Thieves Cant dictionary that we wrote down, because I can't remember what any
Yes.
There is a lot of words in the Thieves' Cant dictionary. I think at some point, you and I, Danny, are going to sit down. We're going to complete this dictionary, and it is going to be either a Patreon perk or something for when we start campaign 3. Anders dictionary of Anders Thieves' Cant dictionary. So there we go. But yes, that was beautiful, and that.
I also want to say that, like, still kind of sort of related to the question, I guess, but because I was just thinking of like moments where stuff like kind of hints that then came together. Which I think is my favorite dungeon that we did. The dungeon that belonged to the Mind Flayers, I think, was probably my favorite dungeon, because the way that evolved was so like natural and so good. Also, if you want to talk about hints that you gave that like just completely passed us by, the cave where you were like, yeah, and there's just like these like round holes that are just completely smooth,
just and we were like,
well,
they've got some interesting,
this is very, very like technologically advanced architecture and digging techniques. And then we were like, no, it's a beholder.
I've had
Of course it's a
some-
beholder.
Of course it was.
Yeah, no, I forget about that. Yeah, but those moments are some of my favourites of DM because it's the big reveals that we all love as Dungeon Masters. Like, let's shock the players a little bit. So yeah, you just enter into a random cave while you're heading towards Shiverspire and boom, just happens to be a beholder there.
And
But that played
you said
into that whole
you
idea that
hated-
there's aberrations in the mountains. Go
You
on.
hated that we used slow, but you got your revenge a little bit when we were fighting the beholders because you cast fear. And I just literally spent every round running away as far as I could. And that's all I could do was run away. I contributed nothing
in
to
that-
that
I
fight throughout
bought a
6 rounds.
Beholder Mini after that fight, which sits up on my shelves just up here to
And also-
remind me.
It's white on
in
the
that
front
fight.
of the handbook, isn't it?
Yeah. In that fight, something happened that, like, if it had happened later on in the campaign, it would have been very dangerous. Just like, Kira got mind control in that fight. Not mind control. He saw the beholder as a friendly.
Yes.
And,
Oh
like,
shit! Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, and you
that,
were.
started healing
that
it.
shit
You were
happening
hurting us
later.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, started healing the beholder, yeah.
Oh, can you imagine if Asmodeus had cracked that one out at the end?
Oh.
Yep. Boy, was I scared.
So yeah, I think the bit that we didn't get to in that is because of the way the campaign went. I had full on prepared for digging into the Mind Flayers mountain and keep excavating, keep going deeper and deeper, and eventually there would have been an Elder Brain there that you'd have found.
Nice.
Which would have been there because of the wild magic forces and the random plane shifts that happen and those sorts of things. Elder Brain just appears and therefore creates Mind Flayers, and hence the Duragar and the twisted nature of what they are, which led into Remley's history and how he found Gindris. And there was a lot of things that I just sort of rolled with that and sort of thought, okay, we can introduce more characters here. And then we introduced Gindris, and I was just like, fuck it, let's just make him a silver dragon, but an ancient one.
Oh yeah, it was so good. That whole like sequence is so good. Like the way that it evolves, and we're like, we're just fighting Duragar, and then it's like suddenly we just see Duragar that
I do
don't have
love
brains, and then
the
the
fact
brains
that-
start
so
attacking.
there's-
We're like,
There's a DM's hint that you didn't get about Gindris, because there's a moment where Remley goes down, and I went, Gindris all of a sudden appears in a different location, and there's 2 dead Duragar or something like that. And Gindris had basically just gone, time stop, let's deal with this shit, and then there we go again, we'll restart time. And
We spent
yeah,
so
I don't
long-
think
I remember,
anybody
like-
picked up on that.
no. I remember the three of us spent a long time in our players chat being like, what the fuck is Gindris? Like, what's his deal?
Yeah.
We were like, he's a
But
sorcerer.
I like that because I
No,
called
he's
him the
a
Silver
warlock."
Mystery.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it was very cool. I have to say that also reminded me of, I'm pretty sure it was Kirik, and that was just the fact that it brought up the fact that we would just cut the head off a dead enemy, stick it in a bag, talk to that later. You know, just every now and then it was just, you know,
Duragar head,
Speak
yeah.
with dead.
there was yeah,
Speak with
just,
dead.
just so often it was just like, oh, there's a bit of information. Thunk. Right, thank you. Just, you know, it didn't always help, but it was always funny.
If any creature ever got stuck in Dargon's bag of holding, God forbid what they saw.
You just think of all of the plot points or the threads we never pulled on, because in theory, our Condasmodius, it brought the campaign to an end quicker than we all thought it would. But we never went to Eticus. We never
Yep.
went to Raph's. What would have happened if we'd have went there? If we'd have went to Eticus?
We never went. Yeah, never went to see the orcs.
Yeah.
You got to tell us,
Never went
Matt,
to see the
what would
orcs.
have happened.
I can't tell you.
Well,
because
it's-
some of this stuff,
Yeah.
as I say, a lot of
Bastards.
things that you did or didn't do in campaign 1, I've deliberately gone and said, okay, that's going to have ramifications for
Okay.
campaign 2.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
mean,
then.
we,
Well,
There's also-
we
wish.
can't know what's in the centre of the Wrathstrike, crater, because after all, he can't give away that Mjolnir is still there. So,
True. True.
You joke, but there
Sorry,
actually is a
where do you-
Mjolnir in D&D.
But where do you think Cord's hammer came from?
Oh, I know.
What?
I am kidding.
What
I am kidding
was-
on that front. Wrathstrike was after.
And I feel like there's always an element about these things of like, oh, what would have happened? And
No.
the answer is like, you don't really know, because like Matt, like you said, like you had stuff planned, and then one of the players just goes, yeah, but I'll do this, and then it's like, oh fuck, well that's the whole session I had planned.
Yeah.
Real. And that's like the beauty of like collaborative storytelling, is that you don't really know. You can plan for stuff, but also it's like,
Absolutely.
I don't know.
It's
You know when we
my
made the
advice
wish-
to any DM is the advice we used to talk about in Cadets Dave, which is no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I can
yeah.
plan. The minute I present that plan to you three, that plan goes totally to shit.
We take a big dump right on it. Yeah. What? You know when we made the wish?
You know,
when we figured out we had to go to the centre of the Thingfold Chasm to free the soul that was trapped, to then release Niley.
Yeah.
We wished for that to happen instead of actually
Yeah.
going there. If we actually went there physically, would we have been able to do it?
I don't know whether you'd have been able to do it, but I had a whole sequence planned for that. I went and studied the lore of the Nine Hells and Asmodeus's minions quite closely. And there was a whole sequence of monsters you'd not yet encountered that were there, and you would have had to fight through to get to the soul of the Brother King, the last remaining, if you like, Brother King, and then free it. So there was a planned Ander moment in that. There was a planned Dargon moment in that as well, with one of the Lieutenants of Hell. And yeah, it just got totally bypassed because there was no point. It wasn't
How do you
necessary in
not-
that moment.
How do you not resent us for you spending all that time and I just went, I'll just wish for it to happen instead? No, you motherfucker, I spent 2 weeks planning that.
Part of the game.
No,
That's why I can't be a
It's-
DM,
and
mate.
I
I'd
think
hold a grudge.
that's it.
I'd hold a grudge.
I think because in those moments where you take stuff away, you also give just as much. That's as somehow says the beauty of collaborative storytelling. You
and
give
also-
me probably more ammunition than I have taken away from me.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say that.
Welcome.
I'd also say that also there is a very good chance that, I mean, obviously you have described to a degree what it was, Matt, but as a DM you still have the ability to be able to go, right, they didn't do that, so therefore I'll use it later. I will change certain aspects of it so it won't be as I've described it, and therefore you are recycling content that never gets used, so it will always get used at some point. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Well, there's
why
dungeons
I think that's
that
the-
I've gone. Karen Smile. I was going to say there's dungeons that I've created that you didn't go to, and then you've done something else later on, and I've just gone map.
As I say, it's either that or recycling in the same campaign, or it'll be great. I know where that can, or I will find a use for that in campaign 2. So no, I think that will always get used. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it
There's
is
a
great.
big. Every DM goes through like the moment of realization of being like, oh, only what I say out loud counts as story. Everything else doesn't. So I can we don't know what Matt had planned that he can just reuse and repurpose in campaign 2. So it's like, yeah, and I think that goes
Yeah, I think-
goes through to like all of our characters as well. It's like only what we say out loud counts, and like everything
But
else.
yeah,
is like,
so
oh,
I
can just-
imagine there's been moments where you've been thinking about your character and something's happened and you've gone, nah, not happening now.
100%. And I'm just thinking that could I answer that quickly enough to ask it as a general question to all of us? Because that sounds really cool. Like, what moment did we go split second decision not doing that?
Well, I've already said it for me. I was going to go. It's a big pivotal moment. I was going to go College of Swords, and then
Yep.
have the whole cursed blade thing, which then sent me on a completely different direction subclass wise.
You were also, if I recall, an episode away from using your wish to just return Nightling. Because you
Yeah,
had a wish
yeah.
in the...
But then something else happened, and I had to wish something else to happen.
Yeah.
But most
don't
of my
think
moments where I've
anybody-
gone, I'm going to do this, and then I've gone, oh, I can't now. It's usually in battle when I've lined up a thing to do.
Yeah.
Then Kirik will do an area of effect thing where everyone's pushed too far away, or you've done something, so now you're in the way of my line of sight, or Bothrid is right in the way, and I had to change my idea last minute. Although I've spent the whole round thinking of it, that's what's usually happened to me.
Yeah.
But so going back to the deck of many things, that as a moment in our campaign, as funny as it was, could have totally changed
'Cause I got
everything
lucky.
in
Quite
one
lucky.
movement.
Real lucky.
You did. I can't believe how lucky you got with the cards you drew. It's just...
I have a question on that.
Go on.
Yeah.
What did Ander own? Was it a building? What was it? Come on.
So there was some brilliant things. So one of the things that he'd picked up in that cave and then lost was an Ioun Stone.
Yes. Fuck's sake.
The other thing that he owned, you'd picked up a broom and just shoved it in your bag. And that was a broom of flying. Which for Ander, as a ranged rogue, would have been fucking amazing. Then there was all the... Obviously, there was the biggest thing.
I kept the Ioun Stone, but I found other... I kept a blue one, but I lost like a red one and another one, didn't I? In the cave.
But so in that moment where you'd picked up a load of gemstones, one of them was an Ioun Stone that just the only thing that you kept was your cloak, because that was an artifact gifted to you from the Fae rather than being a random magical item that had been created. And so for me, the deck of many things in that moment was presented to you by a Fae individual deliberately in that moment to introduce a bit of fun, but also I was playing a very, very big gamble of this campaign could end tonight in a second. The fact that it was Ander who went and digged it up, that was very bad English, dug it up, was pure poetry.
Because you didn't know as a player what it was, right?
Yeah, and I think if Dave or Samau had done it...
No clue what it was.
Yeah. I think if Dave or Samau had dug it up, they'd have been like, okay, I get what this is.
I'll draw 3 cards.
No,
and you were like, no!
How many cards do you want to draw? 5.
Yeah, it was 5. I was going to say.
I was going to say. And the look on somehow my face when we just like...
That deck must be just bad cards now. Like
it is. It's literally just
so wherever that deck is now...
apart from the one where you lost everything.
Lost all my items.
That's probably like the better bad one that you can get. There's like, boy, was I scared that it was like, well,
I can't even remember all the good things I got. I got a wish.
3 wishes.
You got 2 wishes.
Oh,
Was it 3 or 2? You got a couple of wishes anyway. You also got a magic sword out of it. Stick. You need to go and re-watch that episode because it was okay. How many cards do you want to draw from this stack? 5. Okay then.
He's just so nonchalant about it as well. It's like, I'll just draw 5 just for fun. I was like, oh no.
I was going to say, but the point was, I had to work really hard not to metagame to go, Danny, don't, right? Because I was like, do you know what? Actually, I want to see how this plays out, and my character for sure has no idea.
That's the thing. Under the character. Oh, I like card games. Danny, the player. I'm new to D&D. Not a clue what it is. So
I think that's the only time I've had to properly put the DM guardrails on as well, because you went, let's just do a 52 card pickup. I went,
Oh yeah, that was it. I just want to look at all the cards.
Let's think about that one.
Dude, no. Yeah, because I remember that moment, which was like, how many cards do you want to look at? I was like, I'll just look at all of them, and then Matt just goes, I need a number of how many cards you're gonna look at.
Yeah. I'm just gonna empty the pack.
We were talking about like split decisions.
Brilliant.
We're talking about like split decisions. Yes, I'm going to do that. I really wanted to draw a card from the deck.
You
because
did.
Kirik had the deck for a long time. Yeah.
Yes.
And like just before I gave it, I was like, I want to do it, but then because I think there was a moment where like I asked Matt, "What does Kirik know about the deck?" Many things, and then Matt was like, "Well, it can be pretty bad, it can be pretty good, and you also know that all the good has already happened." I was like, "Yeah, Kirik." I, as the player,
I don't think there was
really
anything
want
left.
Oh man, that's a good one.
So yeah, the deck of many things was a fun one. I'm just looking at my episode list, and I think going back to where we were. Carry on, Dave.
I was going to say there was one split decision that I can remember, split second decision I can remember being me as Dargon. So me and the character. He nearly, and I'm guessing that it probably. I mean, it could have gone of many ways. One, it could have been TPK in episode 7, or it could have been, it could have been quite cool. But I was not far off attacking Timiel, and yeah. Now I wonder, basically by throwing, as now Timiel's Wrath, Dawnbringer at Dawnbringer back then.
Dawnbringer.
It was Dawnbringer back then, yeah.
Throwing the sword, and I'm pretty sure it would have just been a Thor moment of he would have just gone tung, and just like caught it and be like, right, thanks, you're a twat, but and I would have gone ho. But no, it was one of those ones of going, I wonder, that was a split second decision, and that when realising and going, this is someone not to piss off.
I think that was one of my first experiences of homebrewing an item as well, because Dawnbringer
is a real like
is an actual item
is an actual
in
item,
mainstream
but Timiel's
D&D.
Wrath was an extension of that.
Yeah, and that's where I thought, how can we make this sword fun? And then, I mean, if I think back to that moment, would Timiel have caught it? No, because he doesn't own or control the sword anymore. Dargon does, so it'd have probably hit him, or I'd have at least rolled for something. But that in itself presented I think as you were approaching Ironforge, I was like, okay, why is Ironforge important? Okay, we're going to have a fallen angel here. Why is the fallen angel important? Okay, we've already set this whole prophecy around 3 brother kings and something important's happened. Fuck it, let's have this angel have killed one of the 3 brothers. This is how early on in the campaign this was. And it just happened to be the brother that was aligned to the celestial powers. So I think that was probably the moment where I really started to formulate what the fuck was our campaign going to be about. I've created this world, what are we going to do with it? Kirik's landed, we've got a full party now, we don't need the sidekicks anymore, we'll let them go do their own thing, let's create a story. And that, I think, the Ironforge arc was the first moment where it was, okay, this is what it's going to be about.
And that's also where one of our characters died for the first time, which was Dargon.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember hearing my pulse that episode, just like the fuck.
Well, I think it was the moment you were just like, I'm going to step onto the symbol of Palor. And me thinking, I need a religion check, because I know he's not devout yet. He's not there as a character. And if it's not this thing, you're dropping, and it's lava, and it's going to hurt a lot.
Again, that was also like the first time that we had the lingering condition that stuck for a little bit of time, and also the loss of HP. That was significant.
And I also think that was the first time we properly then turned a corner RP wise, because then we were RPing your death, what it meant to bring you back, and then when you came back, I remember being mad at you for 2 or 3 episodes for fucking being so stupid and getting yourself killed. Because then I was like, oh, Anders actually grown quite attached to Dargon, actually. But he didn't realise that until Dargon had just died. And then that's when I think I turned an RP corner.
Yeah. I was going to say, holding.
And that's also the moment Bothrid cemented himself as one of the core members of the group, because he was the same.
He broke, but he also broke
don't
the
be a
fight
twat.
up. Yeah, because we were because again we were at each other's throats after a major fight, and he actually came in and went, "Stop it," and we were like, "Hang on a minute, you were just a you were just a lackey, and it's like, oh no, you're actually part of the group now." So
The moment Bothrid knew he was family, when you bought him the Javelin of Lightning, which is why he held on to that so long, and when he had to sacrifice it in the Kraken fight.
yeah,
Oh, speaking
The
of the Kraken
internal
fight,
turmoil that I had to go through and Bothrid had to go through in terms of, does he want to do this? How much does he care for these people? He's going to do it.
you just reminded me of
Yeah.
the Kraken fight actually, because we've done so many cool stuff and we've had so many clutch moments. But one of my coolest things that I think I remember doing in a battle, when we were fighting the Kraken, it's the first time I think I remember it so much because it's the first time I thought outside of the box in terms of, my character can shoot an arrow, my character can cast a spell. I thought outside of the box. We was on a ship, we were fighting a Kraken. I thought, Dagon's down there, I'm up here, or somebody was down there, how can I help? So I got the ship's harpoon, shot the Kraken, and then abseiled down the wire to the Kraken to then fight it on top of the Kraken. I was like, that is probably the coolest thing I've ever done. And then I was like, shit, how do I get back on the ship? But then somebody did control water or something, and we were fine. Brellan did like control water, and we were fine. That was the first time I thought,
I think Kirik did some.
I don't have to just do what my character sheet
had
says. I
control
can do,
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
can
it
do
was
whatever the fuck I
Kirik.
want. And then Matt was like, rule are cool, I'll allow it. And I was like, oh, brilliant. My imagination can go mental and I can literally do whatever I want.
But I think that's like, at the end of the day, there's moments that are important in terms of combat. There's moments that are important in terms of, is this going to move the story on in a way that's going to make it enjoyable for everyone? Does that go with the rules? No. Do I care? Absolutely fucking not.
yeah.
So we're
There's
going to
been-
go down that route.
There's definitely been some rule of cool stuff that has been absolutely sensational and
Oh,
really,
100%.
really cool to to what it's done. And I think that's again the whole part of D&D. I've loved it. So I'm certainly looking forward to what I've learned in campaign 1 as my first character. And we've had in that time we've had one shot, so we've had other characters, and we've had other things that have gone on that has meant that this is not going to be my second character by any means, but it is hopefully going to be my second long-term character. And that is what I really am looking forward to, being able to use everything that I've learned from campaign 1 in campaign 2 and make it so much more fun. And this has already been so fun.
Oh, it has. Absolutely has.
No, I have a question about campaign 1, which is
Go on.
how much do you miss your characters?
How much do I miss my character?
Oh.
Well, Ander is an exaggerated version of me a little bit. So it's like, what I'm going to find the hardest bit is, like, Ander's impulsive, he says what comes into his head, he has no filter. That's like, that's what I'm like in real life, kind of. So what it's going to be hard, and I've done it in one shots, I try and do something completely different, and I try and challenge myself. The hardest thing is going to be, but for a one shot I think, I can be an ADHD rabbit for 2 hours, that's no problem. But
Spoilers.
trying to be a completely different person for 2+ years potentially, that's going to be fucking hard. I'm going to be leveling up RP
Well,
because
I
I'm
think
going
it'll
to
be-
be playing somebody who's not me, if that makes sense.
It'll be hard to begin with, but eventually it's just going to click and you'll get there. I think.
You find it good.
So for me on that question, because obviously I played Bothrid, and Bothrid was a bit of fun. Yes, okay, he was the creature that got captured, but I played a lot of characters. For me, this being the first proper full-on campaign that I have DM'd, it's going to hold an absolute special place in my heart, and we've got to do some serious work for C2 to meet that, because the journey everyone went on, And Danny, you call out the fact that Ander is an extension of you. I think you're absolutely right, and I've called it out before. Your first character is always an extension of you.
Yeah.
And who you are. Your first proper character is always that extension. I have brought an element of this is me to campaign 1 with some of the things and some of the decisions I've made. I think with campaign 2, my aim is to let it be more character led as far as possible. That's going to be a challenge on me. And I will miss this campaign so much. They're just discussing with you lot tonight around the different moments, and I will continue to go and be that narcissist that goes and listens to all the episodes over and over again, because it was so much fun. I'm
just going to have to make inappropriate comments as myself rather than as Ander. That's the only difference.
Or rely on somebody
else. And, to say that is brilliant. Both of your answers, I totally agree with. Yeah, Dargon was also, an extension of me. There's definitely something I've found in the past 2 years, and that is that I've found that D&D and RPing stuff like this has allowed me to not only play what I as a person would want to do and say in times, but also actually what I don't think I would say and how I would act in a moment, and allow that to actually give me the experience to actually then go out in the real world and actually go, do you know what, you can try other things and you can say it in different ways. So actually I found that it's actually really opened up my ability to be able to actually have conversations with other people that you have no idea who they are, because we have role-played it, we've tried it, we've played it, and that is wonderful. And so playing an extension of myself this time, like Danny, I am going to do my very best to not do that this time. And we're going to see how that goes, because it ain't going to be perfect, but I think that it's going to have an evolution. And I bet you that we would look at episode 1 of campaign 2 and the end of campaign 2, and we would again see an arc. This is hopefully the point, a massive character arc of all of our characters. All of them will go from this barest skeleton to someone that, again, we hold our hearts to. And I hope that, we can be daft and bring back a random, even if it is just we're at a weekend, just go, let's bring our old characters back and, play around a table. They will always be with us.
I like the fact that you said you've used your D&D skills in real life, which is good. I'd like to think that you're in a situation that's getting a bit confrontational and you're like, there's only one way to settle this, roll initiative. And Blake's like, what the fuck? What do you mean? And
Dave just pulled out D20s.
Or the fact that I'm trying to bid for a job or something, and I'm just like, and that's a shit persuasion check.
I also like to think that in real life you pay over the price for everything like Dargon does.
Oh, absolutely. For wood,
so brilliant.
Do you know what? That I absolutely loved doing, because actually, as much as I said that, he had his other flaws and stuff, that was actually his comical flaw, and it came out of I don't know where, but it was really funny, and I really enjoyed it, because it didn't matter. And yet it mattered so much to Ander, because it was just, I don't know, so nice that he, as a fighter, he didn't care about that money, but also in the fact that he should have, because he did come from a background of looking after a village, so he should have had that understanding, and to have that complete ineptitude of it, I just thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing of that.
Well, the fact that it came out of nothing, we was in Moonbright, I think, and you didn't have any coppers or silver, so you gave him a gold for an ale. And then I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And then it just grew arms and legs from there. And then you just started tipping people 10 gold for everything.
But that's those natural moments of role play. Like, I think so I've been watching some of the, not that I would like to link off to Critical Role too much, but one of the biggest D&D shows in the world, let's be fair.
Yeah.
And Liam O'Brien talks around this, like, that he has this idea of a character, but then there'll be moments during roleplay where he's just going, this is natural and this is what would happen.
Yeah.
rather than having this plan in the back of your mind. So just being in the moment and going with it. And that moment for Dargon, absolutely perfect. There's moments like that. I think the whole idea of Kirik's asexuality actually is one thing that is a natural progression of the character. It never ever planned.
I was just going to mention it. It was never planned, and I remember specifically when I made the decision that was the case, because I think it might have been in Moonbright. Where was the Eladrin shopkeeper? Was it Moonbright?
Oh, the Enchantress.
Enchantress.
Moonbright.
Yeah.
You mean Queen Titania?
Yes.
That's actually important.
Everyone in the party failed the charisma saving throw at some point to be completely enamored by her, except for Kirik. And I was like, oh, interesting. Why is that? And then I was like, yeah, maybe Kirik's just not interested in that. And yeah, but that was one of the things that wasn't planned. And then that kind of like grew into Kirik doesn't understand like sexual innuendos because that was just something he was never exposed to. So therefore he wouldn't like. That's just a complete part of life where he doesn't like deal with. And that was all from just, that is interesting because that wouldn't have happened if Ander didn't keep making those jokes. So it's like that sort of thing where like you just play off each other with that sense.
I know what Kirik would despise in the real world if he was transported to this world: Love Island.
Oh yeah,
100%.
I mean, don't we all?
Who doesn't despise that? Yeah. Fucking hell.
He would absolutely not.
Just go in. Dawn.
It won't be Dawn, it'd be inflict wounds everywhere, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Path to the grave, inflict wounds, all of you.
Well, Dawn, you wouldn't have
So I was
how different.
Well, I suppose, yeah. Oh no, but I was looking through the episode list because obviously that was the plan to begin with. Was let's go through the episode, and between the first half and the second half is big, longer arcs. It's amazing how much the first half was let's set up with short, sharp, quick arcs. If I look down this list and having literally just scrolled through it, from where we did the mid-campaign recap, it's then Shiverspire, Deluin and River's End, and then we are full into the we have got to solve this problem. We need to go get the primordials. And at some point during that whole thing, there's other things that happen, like we've talked about Abaya and bits like that, but we need to go sort the primordials out. Then it's Anders' kingship arc, if you like, or monarch arc. And then we're there.
Monarch.
It's
if you were.
Monarch. The Monarch. Well played, sir.
Nice.
Well played.
Nice.
Yeah. On stick. That should have been you
The
sticking in the
Monarch.
chat. You should come up with that.
So I was sat here thinking, we need to pull this back. And I'm like, no, we don't. Because, okay, we went and dealt with Zapanir. We went and dealt with this. But actually, from that mid-campaign point, it was laser-focused towards the end.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it honestly felt weird when we were speaking about popping over to these other villages and stuff, to go and see the orcs. I think the reason we didn't do it is it didn't gel. We were like, this doesn't fit. This is like you're at the last bit of a massive game and you're going to do a side quest because your character next to you is going, you can't carry on after this point if you, do you know what I mean? It was just like, no, we need to keep this rolling. We need to keep this running, and this momentum is just flowing. You did mention about us going to deal with Zapanir, and I have to say that was possibly one of my favourite bits for Dargon later on, with him dealing with what Zapanir did to him and him telling her. I remember thinking, okay, if this comes about, I would like Dargon to say something. Didn't really know what it was, and when it came out, I went, yeah, she's going down. And it felt so wholesome. And actually, the only thing I'm slightly annoyed at is I actually thought It worked out in the end, but actually, I wanted Dargon to drink the potion that was going to cure him straight afterwards. No, he didn't, and he did it very shortly afterwards. It was very close, but you know what I mean?
Definitely worked out.
It definitely was. He is not going into this final battle, with this curse. But he's still all like. It was one of those really interesting things. Again, of course, I was like, "This is such a cool game mechanic to have this."
Yeah.
I loved it. Even when we nerfed
I think
it,
you also saved against her control, because part of her lore, if you like, the one bit of lore that I will reveal about her, is that she had the power to control werebears, hence the army around her, if you like. And there's my token hit at the mic for the night. Coming back to early episodes. So the fact that Dargon withstood that and resisted it was a true testament to his character. For him then, before the final battle, to go, yeah, fuck this curse, I'm done with it.
It's had its day. I've done it. I used it. I think that was the final kick in the teeth has happened here. I have used this thing that you gave me, and now I'm done with it.
Because also it was useful when we were fighting in the icy cold mountains.
Yeah.
But then as soon as we're coming up against fiery hell beasts, you're like, well, I can't be a wearer ever again, so I'm susceptible to fire damage. So it also naturally run its course story-wise.
It absolutely had, and that was the point. It wasn't just me. That wasn't me metagaming, knowing that I was going to take double damage. We had done that, and I believe it was even. I mean, this probably was even early on. I think this was even when we were fighting the vampires before we even got into their keep, and I think that. I was a werebear, a hybrid werebear, and you threw a fireball in, and it fucked me up. And that's when I realised that there is a connection. So obviously Dargon also had that question. So yes, I was glad that I wasn't metagaming that. I was like, no. Dargon knows that fire is bad when you're a werebear. So.
Can you imagine being hybrid werebear or even werebear form when that meteor strike had landed?
Mate, it would have been gone.
Just
800 points of damage.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he would have taken
he
would have taken half damage on the bludgeoning. But
but there's the fire.
He would have taken half of that. Double that is not better than taking what he did take. But yeah, I have to say that Bergon is absolutely in my heart just as much as Dargon.
It was going to be one of my questions, but Stick has pointed it out in the chat that, like, granted, Stick, you were amazing, and a lot of the fan art has come from you. Yeah. But favourite fan art, and Bergon sticks out from me. I think there's one. So the owlbear, the pot thrid,
Algon or whatever it was.
So yeah, but I think there's a moment where I can't remember what happens, or I roughly remember what happens. Ander has spider legs coming out of his back. Yep. Bothrid's a potted plant. Yep. And Bothrid turns into an owl, and there's fan art of that.
Dargon turns into an owl. And Kirik is absolutely fine, and as I say, the fan art of him holding a pot plant with an owl on his shoulder was just the most wonderful idea.
It's my favourite bit anyway. Like, love
Shiny
that
skin.
bit.
Yes.
Oh, Kirik, he was covered in glitter when he was something.
So good. So
that was against one of the primordials.
If there's anything it was during one of the primordial fights, because you had not defeated any of them yet. The idea of wild magic was still rife, and as you got closer, it was a lot more powerful because they are the source of the weave, if you like, that raw magic. So yes, we're gonna have to dig that bit of fan art out, Stick. I think it's on our social media channel somewhere. But yeah, it will be around. It's brilliant. But I'm gonna pose the question to the rest of you, like, favorite fan art. Go for it.
Well, okay. But second to that one, then I'll say second to that one. Now, I am going to say that this one is my favourite. This one was Dargon running with Kirik in his arms to go and put him, I don't know, was it like in bed or something? Is one of my favorite bits. It was in the weird guy's mansion, and it just resonates as. I thought it may well have even been like one of the first ones when I was
Lord
like, and
Arif.
that is my character. Do you know what I mean? I was like, it's so funny.
Good old Lord
There's,
Arif, where out of the 3 characters he could have picked, the only one that solved the puzzles was the rogue. And I was fully prepared for this is going to be Kirik that gets possessed.
Yeah, that was.
And then Danny pulled it out of the bag.
Fantastic.
My favourite, I've got 2 favourite fan arts. I don't know if one of them counts as fan art. I like what JK did when Ander and Mirabelle were smushing uglies, and there's the guard outside looking a bit
The
dishevelled.
No Nut November piece.
Yeah, and then the actual, it's not a fan art, it's an emote, but technically it counts as fan art in Twitch when the Sentinel Kirik, nope. That's my favourite.
Nope.
Go
Go on then, Dave.
Can
Hit
I
the
do
button.
it now? Can I do it now? There you go.
There it is.
So good.
Good.
Which we waited like 2 months for it to happen.
Oh my god, guys! Seriously, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
we
know when
did.
it was, but I can't remember. But I remember that Smile and I were chatting, like, "Yeah, no, I've checked it. Here it goes." And I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh my god, that works perfectly." You know, Stick had done her animations on it, and I just literally like overlaid it with the natural 20 thing and just put it in. You know, so it was so much fun, and I was like, "Right, we're gonna use it, and then literally
And then-
2 months went by, and I'm in the fucking toilet because I'm pissing myself during a fight, and I missed the first time it gets needed. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you!"
So funny. So funny.
Oh, it's brilliant though.
My favorite fan
So I
art,
think
which
that,
is also
I mean,
like
we've got
Go on.
something. It was actually a moment that I really, really find it really funny, which was when I can't remember who it was, but it was in the middle of a fight, and someone used Cure Wounds as a kiss, and then the fan art is just Ander looking at Kirik, and Kirik just saying, "I'm not doing that for you." Which is also Stick, which is really,
I love
really
it
good.
so much.
Really funny. Because I think that was an actual line that I
Say it.
said at the time.
It was exactly. Oh yeah, in that moment. Fuck, I'm gonna have to find that episode and flag it up. But I think on that note, I'm gonna say thank you to Stick for all of the fan art because it's been
Yes.
amazing. But obviously, JK, you've submitted some amazing fan art as well during the Battle of Zapanir, where we've got Dragon versus Dragon. And Ander sat on the back of this huge fucking silver dragon fighting a white dragon. So there's been so much fan art. I look forward to hopefully growing our audience and receiving more because it's amazing to see the fans' view of what we are describing, and some of those moments are brilliant, like Algon. And
Sorry, I've just seen
Hotfrid
Algon actually had a cigar.
Yeah,
I'm
you've
sorry.
seen it again.
I just-
It is so brilliant, right? This is why it's
even
my
better second time around.
favourite.
I'll just put it in the Discord.
It is my favourite fan art
art.
of all time. So yeah, if you want that, go join the Discord. Go find the Discord. Go check it out because it is Kirik just stood there like, what the fuck do I do right now? I've got an owl apart. The owl is smoking a cigar. That's how good it is.
But also Ander
so
freaking
good.
out, just like no.
To be fair, it did give me over my fear of spiders actually becoming a spider myself. So, it was pretty handy.
Oh, it's so good. So that has
Do we
been
need to end on
one.
Stick's
I think
question?
yes, absolutely. I was going to say it's the final question. So, Danny, I'll let you ask it.
What are you most looking forward to about campaign 2?
I think I'll go first. I think I'm most looking forward to playing a character that's different from Kirik, and that is somewhat a little bit more in line with what I like. What pulls me more to D&D, and
a monk.
Maybe. And and I'm also
After how many months ago in I'm So Playing a Monk?
And also, I think I'm really looking forward to seeing you two kind of spreading your wings and playing something also different. I have theories about what each of you is going to play, which is, I look forward to being very wrong about that.
It's one of those things, isn't it? How, I don't want to give anything away while speaking about it.
Then don't.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to give anything away. Like I've said before, I want to play something different. I think, like I've said before, I think flaws are important. I also, think that that it's not a good idea to go polar opposites. And I think I can't remember. Oh yeah, I was playing Vraco going spell lists. Sure. Now, admittedly, I was playing at level 17, but you know what I mean. There's to a degree of going, fine, okay, and of course, I have played that type of thing before in other things. No, I think like I said before, that looking forward to how we start as a very mottled crew, and the fact that there will be no glue holding us together. There'll probably be. And by the way, guys, I am literally guessing here. So if it ends up being true, this is total. Just I'm guessing D&D. You start usually by the fact that you're brought together to do a mission for some coin, right? And I don't know whether that's going to be it. Do you know? But I love the fact that that's how it starts. That's how it always starts. Or you're drinking in a pub, someone breaks in, you all fight them, and then you go, oh hey, you're quite cool, or you're not such a dick, or actually we're the only three alive. Do you know what I mean? I don't care how it starts. I love the fact that it will start that way, and we will end up in, hopefully as a group, but also the fact that I can't guarantee that, right? And we may find that one of our characters doesn't gel. And I actually find that even more interesting, even to the point that it might be, guys, I'm going to go, do you know what? I'm going to create a new character because this one doesn't gel with you guys. And I find the anticipation of that, even though I love my character, the anticipation of that is what I think is going to be so fun. Because we have life, growing with us as it happens. So my anticipation of campaign 2 is the fact that I get to do that from the start instead of midway in, where Danny and I, whilst we did create our own characters, we are stuck to a degree with those characters. This time we are choosing. Now, don't get me wrong. I may go, do you know what? Yeah, I fucked up again this time. But I doubt it, and I hope that it's going to be something where we go, I'm really enjoying building this out. And actually what I may have to do after our discussions here is actually bring back some of my backstory. I'm going to pull it back, I'm going to dial it back, and I'm going to go, do you know what, guys? Here it is, one line, right? Because otherwise I'm giving you too much and honing myself in way too far. And actually I don't need to do that, because none of it's going to come out in I'm not going to be sitting down and telling you my life story in session 1. So bring it on, let's evolve them.
Yeah, I think what I'm looking forward to, and also dreading at the same time, is the intentional challenge I've given myself from a character perspective and an RP perspective. So it's in there. The only spoiler I'll give, I suppose, is it's the character, as in the race and the subclass, they're at odds with each other. His flaws and they're all at odds. So it's going to be hard to RP it, but I want it to be that way. So it's completely different from what I've done before. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to how that will actually work and whether I can actually do it justice in real life as it is in my head. Because in my head it's fucking brilliant. In real life it might be absolute dog shit, but that's what I'm looking forward to, is that challenge, and it's completely different thing to what I did before. Like I said, I'm still relatively new, so anything other than a rogue bard that I pick is new.
Yeah.
So for a long period of time, I've done a one shot as a goblin barbarian and a one shot as something else. But it's like I've never done it for a prolonged period of time. So I'm just looking forward to that in general. Everything's going to be new.
Right there with you. And interestingly, I didn't plan this. This is a bit of spoilers for the one shot. I play an artificer. Obviously, I played an artificer previously, and
Bit of a pain.
Bit of a pine at your service. That has shown me, and this is really interesting, how I have played two characters who are artificers who are completely different from each other. And I love the fact that I could, and I am giving a spoiler away here, I'm not playing a fighter class. Just heads up, because that would just be weird. But do you know what I mean? Like, I could play a fighter and it be a completely different character.
Yeah.
And I love that. I really love that. So I just find that just enlightening, the fact that actually, do you know what, we really can, and that's how the levels will help us as well. As we level up, it gives us more to be able to go, do you know what, this makes us totally different. You know, we could have picked, two of us, three of us could have picked exactly the same thing, and as we go through those levels, we will become very different characters, and I think that's really cool.
Imagine how giddy we're going to be as well when Matt does a callback to campaign 1 and we're like, oh, we get the reference, we know what that's about.
Yeah.
Even though our characters wouldn't know that 300 years ago King Ander did this, but I was like, that was me, I did that.
Yeah.
And that little giddy moment. Or all the obvious ones that we miss, all the callbacks to campaign 1 that go straight over our heads.
Straight over our head. Chat's going mental, and we're like going, what are they on about?
Yeah, I'm expecting to get messages from Stick like, you fucking didn't. And the players is like, what? So, no, I think what I am most looking forward to is having got a full campaign under my belt now, having the freedom, the creativity to work with you guys as players and draw more on your characters than we probably did in the first campaign. The first campaign was a bit more guided, whereas my plans for campaign 2 is very much around you guys and what are your flaws, what are your bonds, what are you trying to do, what are you trying to achieve in this world, where are you from? And the big spoiler that we're going to post, Danny, either once we finish this or tomorrow or whatever, is the world map, because we now have the official world map for not just campaign 2 but going forward up until whatever point these 3 decide to absolutely destroy that world. Yeah, we have the new world map. It's not got a lot of detail in there, and there's a reason for that. But yeah, for me, I think having seen all of you grow as players and understand how to navigate D&D and how to navigate stories, how to role play, how to play on those characters, I'm really looking forward to that and playing off that. I'm also looking forward to the fact that every character, without spoiling anything whatsoever, is totally different from what we've seen before. Every single character, vastly different. So it poses a whole new dichotomy, if you like, for what we have to do as a team. It's going to be
We're not going to get on,
a
are
lot
we?
of fun.
That's what's going to happen.
Well, I don't
We
think
didn't
it's
get
that.
on
I
at the
think
start.
it's
We've
just
said
more,
it. We said it before. We didn't get on at the
but
start.
yeah,
of this.
but I think it's more, if I look at every character, and between campaign 1 and campaign 2, there are no similarities anywhere. Nothing between any of the characters that you've created even remotely even looks like a character from campaign 1, and that's including NPCs. I'm going to point out, like, they are so totally different. So it's going to be amazing. There's still some stuff we need to work on as a team and just to get solidified before we start. But I'm just looking forward to the journey ultimately. Campaign 1's been so much fun with all of you. Yeah, I'm actually shit scared of starting again. I'm not gonna lie. It is horrifying of having to go back to early campaign, figure out what the fuck is gonna happen. But at the same time, it's going to be a lot of fun to being able, because I think as a DM, there's a lot more choice in terms of encounters and what things can happen when you're early level as opposed to high level. There's less choice when you get high level, so I'm looking forward to be able to having a lot more choice, but at the same time, it is fucking terrifying.
That's one thing, and I'm terrified and looking forward to for campaign 2, and that is, it's not something that I did in this campaign, and that is. We don't know where our characters are going to go. We discussed about the fact that actually one of the main reasons why we subclassed was, the lore, the RP took us in that direction. I fully intend that is a thing in the future. Do you know what I mean? I think that's great. But what I find interesting is possibly is looking through the tree that is your class or classes and going, where can it take me? Because I think that also can potentially, not just with the RP, I totally get that the RP will absolutely be the steering force in this, but which river, which road, and it's just knowing which ones are which, I think will make a difference. Because like I said to you before, I suddenly realised that Battlemaster was a thing in Fighter and went, why have I not been doing this from the start? And that's where I wish that I had known that earlier. And I hope that that is something that I can look forward to in Campaign 2, to go, if I play in this direction, this will happen. And if something happens, then I will diverge. And I will be fine with that. But I have an interest in why I've built this character from .1. You know what I mean? Because otherwise it's like, well, why am I doing this? What are they going to be? And we will find out.
That's going to be the big difference between C1 and C2 as well, is the fact that you and Danny specifically have built this from the ground up.
Yeah.
And this is all you now. Like, there's no guidance. Well, sorry. There's a little bit of guidance from me, and I mean minimal guidance from me. But all three of you now have built these characters to what you want to portray. You've put your own thoughts and ideas into this. Literally, the whole world has been your oyster. I've said, what do you want your character to be? Where do you want to be from? And we've built that into the world. So it's now... It's over to you, almost, actually. I am here as a vehicle. You've got to drive that vehicle now, I think, is the big thing from me. So I know we're probably getting close to time now, and I think one of the things I did want to do is a little spoiler for Campaign 2, which, just to be clear, in terms of our schedule, will kick off in the first Monday of January, I believe it is. So that should be all over the social media. But we are planning to kick off Campaign 1 early in January next year. So my spoiler, unless there's anything anybody wants to quickly add before I do so.
I think we're good.
We're good? Okay. So, Campaign 2. 30 years are going to have passed since the Kingdom of Nylin was restored to the world of Ardalia. Since the Wardens took care of the Scourge of Asmodeus. As that desolated kingdom was returned, it brought with it a wave of powerful magic. The rawest of powers almost swept across the globe, and in doing so, for the briefest of moments, the barriers between those worlds was weakened. And primordial forces crept into this world, other forces crept across to other worlds. Where once magic was rare or divine, it is now rife. Archmages are common, and divine influence, once forgotten, is now, or has now, bled back into existence. Despite that, the gods themselves remain distant, locked beyond a divine gate, but able to exert their will through their most devout followers. And that is where our adventure will begin, with our new characters, our new locations, new worlds to explore, but just to set the premise of our world going forward into Campaign 2, that is where we're at. So yes, join us early January to see what the hell is going to happen.
So, my last thing will be to say that it has been an absolute pleasure to not only have this episode where we've talked about it, but also for our whole, 2 years, where we have gone through this evolution that we have spoke about tonight. I think it's been truly, truly amazing. I'm so grateful for the players that I've obviously been working with, and Matt, DM, absolutely sensational, chat, and everyone who've watched and listened. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like we said, join us for Campaign 2. It's going to, I hope, be an absolute riot from the get-go. So I think the last thing for us to do is that we are all going to say goodbye to you guys from Campaign 1, and then we'll see you in Campaign 2. Goodbye, everyone.
See you next week
Cheers
for part
all.
2 of Wilds and Witchlight, or whatever it's called.
See you
Absolutely.
next.
Witches and Wildlights, part 2 next week.
See you
But other
guys.
than that, see you next week.